According to a new unpublished study, one of the brightest stars you can see in the night sky is likely to explode within our lifetime. The star in question is a red giant called Betelgeuse. It's located in the left shoulder of the constellation of Orion. The star might have no more than 300 years' worth of fuel left in its core. Once it burns through these last reserves, the core will collapse, forming a black hole. As for the star's outer layers, they are likely to be blasted out into space at a mind-boggling 25,000 miles per second. This is what astronomers call a supernova. If Betelgeuse goes supernova, it will be a spectacular sight to watch from Earth. The star is comparatively not far from our planets, just 650 light-years away. So those layers of ejected gas and dust will shine as bright as the full moon. It will also last for several weeks. Interestingly, most astronomers don't believe Betelgeuse is ready to go kaboom yet. Then, what makes the authors of the new paper think otherwise? Well, this star is definitely a red giant that has burned through its primary fuel, hydrogen. At the moment, it's most likely fusing helium remaining in its core into some heavier elements. The point at which a star runs out of its hydrogen is unmissable. When a star is short on hydrogen, it needs to put extra energy into igniting the helium created during the process of hydrogen fusion. These additional efforts make such a star expand dozens of times beyond its original size. It also becomes redder and cooler in the process. Astronomers know that Betelgeuse is very, very large. If you placed it at the center of our solar system, its outer atmosphere would reach so far that it would swallow Jupiter. But it's hard to measure the exact diameter of the star. All because Betelgeuse is not your regular smooth ball of plasma. Instead, it's a lumpy chunk of boiling gas bubbles hiding behind dust clouds. This is the main reason why measuring the size of the star isn't easy. But to determine the star's remaining lifetime, we must know its diameter. And a team of scientists from Japan suggests that Betelgeuse is larger than most astronomers think. The star is known to pulsate. It expands and shrinks, dims and brightens again and again at regular intervals. Researchers link these changes to the periodical expansion of the star's outer region. There are other oddities in the behavior of the star. They appear on a regular basis too. Astronomers see the connection between these quirks and turbulent processes taking place inside the star, which seems ready to go out. The research team behind the new study believes that Betelgeuse's main pulsation mode is represented by the 2,200-day cycle, and the 420-day brightness variation might be the star's secondary quirk. For this scenario to work, Betelgeuse needs to be up to 1/3 wider, and to be as wide as necessary for this model, the star has to be in a later stage of its life, done with burning helium and, instead, running on carbon received from previous fusion of helium atoms. Whether a red giant is burning helium or carbon makes a great difference in terms of how much time it has left. If it's still in its helium-burning phase, the red giant can live for tens of thousands of years. But if it's already in the carbon-burning stage, the end is near and might come within a few thousand years. In the case of Betelgeuse, we can't determine exactly how much carbon the star still has, but carbon exhaustion might happen as soon as in 300 years. After that, fusions of heavier elements might take a few dozens of years. When it's over, the core will collapse and a supernova explosion will occur.
Imagine you're looking up at the sky on a clear night, and you see all those beautiful stars twinkling up there. Well, one of them is Betelgeuse, a celebrity among stars. If you want to catch a glimpse of it, look up at the Orion constellation. It low-key looks like an archer holding a bow, and you can spot Betelgeuse as the reddish-orange dot on their shoulder. It's one of the brightest stars in the sky, so it's hard to miss. Betelgeuse is not your ordinary star. First of all, it's gigantic, up to 1,000 times the size of our sun. Can you imagine that? It's so enormous that if we could somehow replace our sun with Betelgeuse, it would engulf all the inner planets, including Earth. And here's another fun fact. when we look at Betelgeuse, we're actually looking back in time.
Yep, you heard it right.
Betelgeuse is about 600 light years away from us, so the light we see today actually left the star 600 years ago.
It has quite a history. This star has been shining brightly for millions of years. Long, long ago, even before smartphones and telescopes, ancient Sumerians were the first to spot Betelgeuse in the sky, and it's been a diva this entire time. For example, in 1866, Betelgeuse became one of the brightest stars in the night sky. It was so dazzling that people could see it even during the day. Astronomers all around the world went bananas documenting this extraordinary event. Since then, Betelgeuse has been playing hide-and-seek with us. It all started when Betelgeuse started to dim back in 2019. Since then, it likes to dim and brighten sporadically. But these changes in brightness tell us about something important. As we mentioned, Betelgeuse was always a bit of a troublemaker. It's been living a fast and furious life. Because of that, it has been burning its fuel at an incredibly fast rate. The changes in the star's brightness are clues that Betelgeuse is approaching the end of its life cycle. The drama intensified when the Hubble Space Telescope snapped jaw-dropping images of Betelgeuse, like it was getting ready to blow its top. All this made scientists think that the star is close to retiring in a dramatic way. It's about to go supernova. So picture a star partying hard, powered by the fusion of hydrogen atoms. It's like the star's own energy drink, but just like any party, the fuel starts to run out. That's when things get interesting. As the star guzzles up its hydrogen fuel, it slowly begins to run on empty. It can't sustain itself anymore. So now, it's time for the grand finale. This finale is called supernova. The star collapses in on itself like a deflating balloon. The pressure and temperature inside skyrocket to mind-boggling levels, and this celestial tantrum triggers a colossal bang. So you can see why observing Betelgeuse is like having a front-row seat to the spectacular drama. But here's the big question. When will this happen? Well, the answer is not as simple as setting a timer. You see, stars have their own schedules, and Betelgeuse is no different. It could be tomorrow, or it could be thousands of years from now. Scientists have come up with only a rough estimate. They believe that Betelgeuse will go supernova within the next 100,000 years. Quite a spread, huh? Sure, that sounds like forever to us, tiny humans. But in the vastness of the universe, it's just a blink of an eye. But there's a chance, just a tiny chance, that Betelgeuse could surprise us all and go supernova much sooner. Considering its dips in brightness, we might be in for a show within the next few hundred years. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, if Betelgeuse does go kaboom, what will happen? Well, get ready for a show like no other, folks. When a star collapses under its own weight, it unleashes a cosmic firework of epic proportions. The star releases a crazy amount of energy in the form of light and heat. Betelgeuse's supernova is going to be extra special. It's like the superstar of supernovas. It will shine so brightly that it might even outshine the other stars in the sky. Picture that, Betelgeuse stealing the spotlight. The show could be so bright that you won't need a telescope to catch a glimpse. Nope, you'll be able to see it with a naked eye. It might even be visible during the day, making the sky look like it's hosting the coolest rave ever. After that, the supernova will keep us entertained for weeks. It will be like having a second moon in the sky, shining as bright as the full thing. Imagine that, two moons dancing together in the night. After several weeks of lighting up the night sky, Betelgeuse's supernova will slowly fade away, but it would leave behind a souvenir, an ethereal remnant. It's like a fading memory of the star's epic performance. This remnant, too, would slowly fade away over the course of several months. But it's not just about the light show. The boom will send out powerful shockwaves, and we might actually feel them right here on Earth. It's like the universe giving us a gentle tap on the shoulder, saying, hey, look at this amazing spectacle. How dangerous will it be for us? Well, we know that Betelgeuse's supernova would send dust and gas shooting into the atmosphere. It's like a big space sneeze, and this sneeze could cause a decrease in global temperatures. We're talking serious climate impact here. It could even lead to a mini ice age. But these are just assumptions. We don't know for sure if the consequences will really be that serious. But, of course, we want to be prepared for this event just in case. That's why scientists are studying Betelgeuse closely. But, in addition to serious scientific research, astronomers also have a blast of celestial comedy. Jokes are flying left and right. Someone has even created a Betelgeuse status account, which you can check yourself. So, as you can see, the star is keeping us on our toes. Astronomers keep observing it, and they need our help too. They want us to keep an eye on Betelgeuse and report any changes we see. How do you do that? First off, channel your inner astronomer and observe Betelgeuse. Take a peek at the star and note down what you see. Is it twinkling, shining, or feeling a bit dim? Jot it all down. Then be a superstar yourself and report your observations to the astronomers. Your observations will help them track Betelgeuse's journey towards its big supernova moment. You can also join in on some citizen science projects. They're super fun and easy, trust me. One cool project you can jump into is the Betelgeuse Brightness Monitor. By participating, you help scientists keep tabs on how bright Betelgeuse is shining. Your contribution can make a real difference. So join the monitoring team. You'll be part of something amazing, and who knows, your observations might even help predict when Betelgeuse will show off its supernova magic. By doing that, we can assist them in monitoring this superstar and learn more about the fascinating world of stars. But that's how we can help scientists to predict this event. Now, how can you personally prepare for it? First things first, you'll need the right gear to catch all the supernova action. A trusty telescope is like your front row ticket to the starry show. It'll bring you up close and personal with Betelgeuse's performance. And remember, you'll need special eyewear to shield your eyes from the intense burst of light. Safety first. And of course, prepare in case it decides to mess with our climate. Stock up on essentials, like warm clothes and supplies, just in case we experience a mini ice age. But let's just hope it won't happen. So keep your eyes on the night sky, my friends. Betelgeuse may not be ready to blow up just yet, but when it does, it will be a sight to behold. Until then, let's enjoy the twinkling stars. And remember, there's always something extraordinary happening in the vastness of space.
All the stars we see, including our sun, are in a balance of powers. Stars are very heavy objects, so they have strong gravity, which presses them from the outside and makes them shrink. But inside a star, while it burns fuel, there are nuclear reactions that produce incredible amounts of energy. This energy is the light and heat that we feel during the day. But most importantly, these reactions increase the pressure inside the star and create a force that is fighting with gravity. So as long as the star has a full tank, it's safe. But then, the fuel runs out, the pressure inside the star falls, and the gravity wins. A star the size of our sun can shine for about 10 billion years. Specifically, our lovely sun is about 4.5 billion years old and has already burned half its fuel. The next stage in a star's life comes when it runs out of juice. Internal pressure drops, but gravity continues to press. At some point, a star simply collapses under its own weight and shrinks to the size of its core at the speed of almost a quarter of the speed of light. In less than half a second, a huge star turns into a small and dense object. This rapid collapse creates incredible shock waves that cause the upper layers of the star to explode. Now, an incredible amount of energy and matter is thrown into outer space. At this moment, luminosity of the star increases millions or even billions of times. This is the flash that our scientists can see with super powerful telescopes. But the light from this explosion doesn't reach our planet until many years later. So in fact, this star has long since faded. There are several options at this point. It all depends on the size of the star. if its mass is small, about the mass of our Sun, then for several months, this flash will become brighter and brighter until it reaches its peak. Then, the energy of the explosion will begin to dissipate, gradually fading and cooling down. A few years will pass, and the temperature of the former star will match that of space, and it will simply cease to exist. But the heavier the star, the more interesting the events will be. Heavy stars burn their fuel too quickly and have a much shorter lifespan. Stars weighing about 8 masses of the Sun can collapse into a rather unusual object, which is rarely found in the universe, a neutron star. This dull ball is only 6 to 12 miles wide and covered with a hard metal crust about half a mile thick. Neutron stars can weigh about 2 suns and have a strong gravity force. If you feel comfortable and in good shape on Earth, you wouldn't even be able to lift a needle or a match here. What's more, you would be pressed to the surface like a pancake and just unable to move. But there are stars dozens of times heavier than the Sun. An explosion of such a supernova, which weighs at least 40 times more than the Sun, gives birth to the most inexplicable and mysterious object in the universe, a black hole. At first, an incredibly bright explosion occurs. A shockwave spreads, carrying dust and matter of the former star around like a fog. And at the place of the explosion, only a small black disk is left. This black abyss is the heaviest object in the universe. It's so heavy that its gravity curves space-time around it. Yes, the closer you are to a black hole, the slower time will go for you. If you could get close enough to one of them, spend a couple of minutes in its orbit, and return to Earth, you would simply not recognize your home. 1 minute near a black hole can be a month, a year, or a decade on Earth. This depends on how heavy the black hole is. But don't get too close. The force of its gravity is so strong that even light can't escape from it. Humanity also knows about the existence of supermassive black holes. They gradually build up their mass, feeding on different cosmic objects just like a predator. Usually, such supermassive black holes lie in the centers of galaxies, and their gravity is so strong they can hold countless stars near them. For example, this is the only photo of a black hole, which is located in the center of the Messier 87 galaxy. The orange glow around it is its event horizon. That's the remains of the light from the objects this black hole has swallowed. You're quite safe though. The closest black hole is 1,120 light-years away. But supernovae can explode not only when gravity wins the fight with the star's internal forces. Sometimes the opposite happens. The nuclear fusion inside the star begins to affect much more matter than normal. The pressure inside a star increases, and it defeats the force of gravity that exerts pressure on the star from outside. At this point, there's a boom! This never happens by itself, and this type of supernova is only possible in binary star systems. 2 stars are spinning around each other. One star begins to swallow the substance from the other. Then, the nuclear reactions inside it are no longer in balance, and a supernova explodes. For some time, scientists believed that such an explosion could occur in 2022. There's such a binary system in the Swan constellation at a distance of 1,800 light-years from the Sun. The luminous red nova should have occurred here. Such a red flash would have been visible to the naked eye for months. And after the explosion itself and the merger of 2 stars, a new, hotter, and heavier star was to appear in their place. But a new analysis of the data revealed a calculation error, and this event will not happen soon after all. So now we see that a supernova explosion is a very dangerous event, and it can cause great harm to our planet if it happens close enough. The main danger is gamma rays. This is the radiation that comes from the explosion. When these rays reach the Earth, they affect our space shield, the atmosphere. They reduce the ozone layer and make us vulnerable to solar radiation and cosmic rays. In this case, all life on the planet is in incredible danger. And the bad news is that such an explosion could happen quite soon. Betelgeuse, the brightest star in the night sky, about 17 times larger than the Sun and 8.5 billion years old. It's begun to exhaust its fuel reserves. Scientists predict that this giant will explode like a supernova at any moment within the next 10,000 years. So it may happen in a few centuries or even tomorrow. Everything will happen as follows. Betelgeuse will collapse in a fraction of a second, and then it will explode so brightly that it will look like a second moon in the night sky. We will observe a new bright spot in the sky for weeks or even months. But then, it will begin to fade until it completely disappears. Not without a trace, though. In its place, there will be a neutron star, weighing 1.5 times the Sun. It will be one of the biggest events that humanity has ever seen. Still, we have nothing to be afraid of. Betelgeuse is about 550 light-years away from us, so its X-rays and ultraviolet light will not affect us. A much greater danger is posed by the release of material that occurs in a supernova explosion. But this shouldn't make you worried either. The shockwave won't reach the Earth until 6 million years later, and it will be suppressed by the oncoming solar wind. So if we see Betelgeuse explode today, it will be an epic sight. But, in fact, the star will not exist at the time, because it will mean the event itself happened almost 6 centuries ago. It's just that now the light from it has reached us. Some scientists believe that the Ordovician Silurian extinction events, which occurred almost 500 million years ago, happened exactly because of a star explosion. Then, almost 60% of marine vertebrates went extinct. Yet, it was not a supernova, but a hypernova. That is what scientists call explosions of stars 100 to 150 times larger than the Sun. In addition to the abnormal weight, the star must rotate very quickly. Such objects are very rare. In our galaxy, there are few of them, and scientists believe that hypernovae occur about once in 200 million years.
Most of those twinkling dots scattered across the night sky seem unreachable. But one of them is Betelgeuse, a star so enormous and nearby that you can see it with the naked eye. To find it, locate the first 3 big dots in the Orion's belt. A reddish star to the left is Betelgeuse. It's one of the brightest stars we can see from Earth. And it's just 640 light-years away. No big deal. Betelgeuse has a blue-white O-type star, which is one of the hottest types to exist. Betelgeuse was scorching hot, reaching temperatures of about 90,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Although that was back in the day, now it's an elderly star and it cooled down to just 5,800 degrees. You know, vacation weather. Blue-white stars are absolutely massive and burn incredibly bright because they have loads of hydrogen fuel. But they have a price to pay for this glory. They burn through their fuel super quickly. As they age, they transform into red giants. This is exactly what happened to Betelgeuse. It burned through its hydrogen and started burning helium instead. This caused its outer layers to puff up like a balloon, turning it into a red supergiant and making it one of the largest stars out there. Now it's stretching over 700 million miles in diameter. Now it's about 1,000 times bigger than our Sun. If Betelgeuse replaced it, it would swallow up Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, even Jupiter. And its atmosphere would almost reach Saturn. But something strange has been going on. Betelgeuse spinning way faster than it should for a star of its size. Huge stars like Betelgeuse are expected to rotate slowly, but it suddenly started spinning at a rate of about 3 miles per second. Thanks to powerful radio telescopes, Betelgeuse's orange-red surface can be seen in detail. That's how we learned that it often changes its brightness. Sometimes Betelgeuse shines super brightly and then gets very dim. This happens about every 400 days. And recently, a telescope called ALMA, which is made up of many antennas working together as one, showed that Betelgeuse's surface seems to be moving unevenly. It's like one side is coming towards us while the other is moving away. But all of it might be a trick of light. Betelgeuse isn't as smooth as our sun. Instead, it's super chunky. Its surface is like a boiling cauldron. It's bubbling and churning incredibly fiercely. Imagine giant plumes of hot gas erupting from its core, reaching the surface and then vanishing back inside. And these bubbles are bigger not only than the sun, but Earth's entire orbit around the sun. These bubbles also rise and fall super quickly, even faster than a spacecraft. And maybe this tricks our telescopes into seeing it spin faster than it really does. Some astronomers also think that Betelgeuse could have swallowed up another star, and this gave it a spin boost. But these are all just theories. Things got even more complicated when Betelgeuse dimmed once again, this time in a pretty unexpected way. What's interesting, it was discovered using a weather satellite. A regular telescope had a hard time seeing Betelgeuse clearly because of Earth's atmosphere. So they used a satellite that normally watches Earth's weather, but can also take pictures of space. As we mentioned, it usually brightens and dims about every 400 days. But recently, it suddenly dimmed by 2.5 times more than ever before. This event got the name the Great Dimming. The first theory said that Betelgeuse cooled down and sneezed out a bunch of material, creating a massive dust cloud. This cloud blocked the view of the star, making it look much fainter than usual. They also noticed something strange happening to that dust. It started behaving differently, which might be a sign that something deep inside the star was causing trouble. Betelgeuse's brightening and dimming cycle now happens faster in just 200 days instead of 400. And to add to the mystery, in the spring of 2023, it started shining even brighter than it normally does at its peak. Why is this frightening? Because Betelgeuse might be preparing for its grand finale, and this wouldn't be very good for Earth. We might be on the verge of a supernova. When massive stars like Betelgeuse run out of fuel in their cores, they start burning different elements like carbon, oxygen, and silicon. Eventually, they end up with iron in their cores. At that moment, everything changes. Adding helium to iron doesn't produce energy like other reactions do. Instead, it sucks up energy. This causes the star's core to collapse, leading to what's called a core collapse supernova. A spectacular, breathtaking show. Supernovas are so bright that they can outshine entire galaxies. But a Betelgeuse supernova would be special. Because it's relatively close to us, it would be so bright that we could see it even during the day. When it happens, Betelgeuse will shine as brightly as a full moon, but all that light will be concentrated in one point. For about 2 months, it will be so bright that you could read a book just from the light of the supernova, even if you turned off all the city lights and had a clear sky. The idea of witnessing Betelgeuse explode as a supernova is truly thrilling. After all, the last time a star went supernova in our galaxy was way back in the time of Johannes Kepler, more than 4 centuries ago. That event, known as the SN 1604 or Kepler supernova, dazzled the sky for weeks. But don't get too excited yet. We're not sure when exactly it'll happen. One study says that the star might be in its carbon-burning phase. If we're near the end of that stage, then Betelgeuse might blow up very soon, during the next tens of years. But it's nearly impossible to determine because during that last phase, the star barely changes at all. Even though Betelgeuse is close enough for us to study its surface, we can't peek inside its core to see what's really happening with it. We might as well be at the beginning of the carbon-burning phase, and in that case, we might have to wait 1,000 more years before that cool supernova. Another study says that Betelgeuse might have less than 300 years of fuel left in its core. They say that Betelgeuse is known to expand and contract regularly, and its pulsation pattern hints that Betelgeuse is much larger than we previously thought. This would suggest that the star is further along in its life cycle and closer to going supernova. Other guesses come from observations of similar stars. For example, a star called VYCMA in our galaxy is thought to be closer to going supernova than Betelgeuse, and it's been dimming steadily over the past century, unlike the relatively stable Betelgeuse. If Betelgeuse was about to go supernova, it would dim steadily and very quickly. Also, historical records suggest that about 2,000 years ago, people saw Betelgeuse as yellow, not red. If that's the case, then we might be in its early last days after all. In other words, we have no idea whether it will go supernova tomorrow or in 1,000 years. We just gotta wait and see. But let's say it goes supernova tomorrow. What happens to us then? The 1987 supernova in the Large Magellanic Cloud showed that the effects from the supernova might be so strong we can sense it even from very far distances. The Large Magellanic Cloud is almost 170,000 light-years away, and we still detected the radiation. It's kinda hard to say exactly what the danger zone is. A rough estimate could be around 100 light-years. Luckily, Betelgeuse won't pose any danger to humans. It's hundreds of light-years away, and its supernova won't influence us in any way. We'll be able to enjoy its supernova beauty without any harm.
In September 1859, scientists observed the first confirmed powerful solar flare. The sun threw a large amount of radiation, energy, and plasma material into space. This was a massive and devastating disaster, but it happened 93 million miles away, so it probably wasn't such a big problem, right? Well, actually it was. A few hours after the flare was spotted, telegraph lines stopped working all over Europe and North America. Some of them sparked and caused fires. People realized that the sun was not only the source of light and warmth, but also danger. Scientists called that day the Carrington effect. The good news is that this happened in the middle of the 19th century and didn't cause serious problem for the planet. The bad news is that scientists are warning that in 2025, Earth will experience even more powerful solar storms caused by a coronal mass ejection. This is a giant cloud of plasma or charged gas. At one time, the sun can throw billions of tons of this material into space. Then, all this flies at high speed through space. Some of the material can reach our planet in 15 hours, the rest in a few days. During the journey, it captures and accelerates any charged particles encountered along the way, which increases its intensity and power. And then, this unstoppable array of energy crashes into our planet. It heats the upper layers of the atmosphere, increases its thickness, and disturbs the work of satellites. They slow down and lose altitude. Communication with satellites becomes unstable, GPS is buggy, data is poorly transmitted. Also, solar-charged gas penetrates into our power grids, transformer booths, and stations. It leads to massive failures that ruin the work of the entire technological chain. A powerful solar attack on several power plants can trigger a power outage in a large city. The internet, phones, social services, networks, nothing will work. We may lose connection with each other. Many large companies would go bankrupt, and the planet may face economic crises. These are big problems, but not the most serious ones. Electric plants serve boiler houses and water pumping stations. Solar storms could stop water from getting to our homes. You wouldn't be able to buy groceries in stores without cash. Of course, we can restore all this, but we'll have to live in the Iron Age for a while. But the worst thing is that a prolonged solar storm can suspend food production. For example, this year, a geomagnetic storm caused by solar storms shut down GPS satellites that are connected with modern tractors, so farmers couldn't work. What would happen if such storms happened every day for a year? We would probably start missing many items in supermarkets. Besides, maritime navigation also depends on satellites. Thanks to them, ships calculate the latitude and longitude of their location. If the satellites are damaged, ships may get lost in the ocean. Even whales get lost in the ocean during magnetic storms. Many birds navigate with the help of magnetic field during long flights to the south. So, not only people, but also animals may experience serious problems. Solar storms heat the upper layers of the Earth's atmosphere and thus make the air thicker. The movement of satellites slows down because of this air resistance. They lose altitude, and one of these satellites is Hubble. Yes, the very telescope that provides us with incredible pictures of space. Scientists say that it will fail much earlier because of solar attacks. You've probably heard on the news that solar activity has recently caused electromagnetic storms on Earth. But fortunately, it hasn't affected our lives in any way. The only problem was headaches, high pressure, and mood swings during those storms. It seems like an ordinary thing, but scientists don't have a consensus on this topic. No one has proven exactly how and why magnetic storms affect our condition. Yes, during storms, the planet's atmosphere becomes less dense, and perhaps this affects our blood pressure, like it happens when the weather changes. So people with cardiovascular system problems should be careful. But the effect on our nervous system, fortunately, is quite insignificant. It's possible that when people hear about a coming magnetic storm and feel unwell, they experience a placebo effect. But there's also good news. All these charged solar particles interact with atoms and molecules in Earth's atmosphere. This interaction leads to beautiful northern lights. It's good to spend some time away from your gadgets and look up at the sky sometimes. One of the biggest storms occurred on March 13, 1989. On March 10th, the Sun ejected a gigantic volume of coronal plasma. The amount of that material was the size of 36 Earths. The solar cloud was flying to us at 1,000,000 miles per hour, and a couple of days later, it crashed into our planet's magnetic field. The collision caused a geomagnetic superstorm. People watched some of the brightest and most beautiful auroras in history. The light show covered most of the planet, but after a beautiful performance, problems followed. The solar storm was so powerful that it went through the atmosphere and reached Earth's surface. First, it disrupted the operation of satellites and then damaged electrical networks. For example, it destroyed a transformer at a nuclear power plant in New Jersey. Energy companies in Canada went down because of systems overloading. As a result, about 6 million people in northeastern Canada lost electricity for 9 hours. This was the largest power outage caused by a geomagnetic storm. Yeah, there were more powerful storms in the mid-19th and early 20th centuries, but the planet wasn't covered by so many power grids at that time. More powerful storms may occur in 2025. The question is, will we be ready for them? Careful study of solar activity can help us prepare. If we know in advance about an upcoming storm, then scientists can switch off some systems and turn them on afterward, theoretically. If the activity of the Sun increases every year, then we'll have to come up with new innovative ways to protect ourselves. Who knows? Maybe scientists will cover all our electrical appliances and stations with a layer of special protective material. Anyway, we must do everything possible not to harm Earth's magnetic field, because if this shield disappears, the surface of our planet will resemble that of Mars. But what causes these solar storms, and why do they affect us so much? Okay, imagine a guy with a nice hairstyle who goes to bed. In the morning, his head is a complete mess. The magnetic fields of the Sun are similar to this tousled hair. When the Sun rotates, these fields burst, get tangled, stretch, and tear. At those moments, they release huge amounts of energy into space. This is not a problem for the Sun, as the fields are restored during the process called magnetic reconnection. Such emissions can cause trouble for the planets in our system. When magnetic reconnection happens, several phenomena can follow. One of them you've already heard about. It's a coronal mass ejection. But there's another terrible thing that the Sun does, and it's called solar flare. Imagine a bright burst of solar radiation containing electromagnetic waves, X-rays, radiation, and visible and ultraviolet light. During flares, the Sun releases an enormous amount of this destructive energy, and it spreads through space at the speed of light. It takes 8 minutes for this explosive wave to reach our planet. Fortunately, we don't get much damage from these flares because Earth's magnetic field and atmosphere protect us. Strong flares can disrupt radio waves in the upper atmosphere and affect the operation of satellites, but it's nothing critical. Another solar phenomenon is called a radiation storm. These are accelerated electrons and protons that move at a speed slightly less than the speed of light. Thanks to Earth's magnetic field, radiation storms don't harm our planet too much, but they pose a danger to astronauts and satellites. These particles can penetrate human tissues and lead to serious health problems in the way radiation does, but only if you're in space or flying a plane in the upper atmosphere. Now, it's been a long time since there was a supernova in the Milky Way, over 400 years to be precise. So hey, we're long overdue. So here are the most likely stars to go boom, if they haven't already. At the top of the list must be the Southern Hemisphere star Eta Carinae. Greek letters before the name of the constellation indicate the rank of the star's brightness in that constellation. Sir Edmund Halley, in 1677, recorded Eta Carinae as the 7th brightest star in the constellation Carina, Eta being the 7th letter in the Greek alphabet. It might not have looked very bright to Sir Edmund and his contemporaries in the 17th century, but modern studies of Eta Carinae estimate it's 5 million times more luminous than our Sun. Luminous is a technical word astronomers use. It doesn't just mean brightness. Luminosity refers to the total energy released at all frequencies. Eta Carinae releases 5 million times more energy than the Sun. Truly one of the whoppers of the Milky Way, Eta Carinae is 100 times more massive and 240 times larger than our yellow-white dwarf sun, Sol. Obviously, since it appears dim, Eta Carinae is pretty far away, about 7,500 light-years away. Yet even at this distance, if this star goes hypernova, it can still impact Earth's ozone layer, disrupt satellite communications, and harm astronauts. 159 years after Halley's observation, Eta Carinae experienced a nova-like explosion. It increased from a relatively dim star to become the second brightest star visible from Earth, but only for a period of 27 years. From 1836 until 1863, Eta Carinae was the second brightest visible star after Sirius, the dog star, and Sirius is only about 8 light-years away. Since 1863, aside from a couple of flare-ups, Eta Carinae has dimmed back down to its original brightness at magnitude 4.5. Now, astronomers owe us a small apology, which we don't expect to get anytime soon, for star magnitude nomenclature. The brighter a star is, or planet, or moon, the lower its magnitude. Thus, stars brighter than first magnitude are either 0 magnitude or negative magnitude. The full moon, for example, is magnitude negative 13. A magnitude positive 4.5 star, like Eta Carinae, is quite dim as seen from Earth, but it's clearly visible in a night sky without light pollution or clouds if you live anywhere south of the latitude of Cairo, Egypt. 30 degrees north latitude is the farthest north you can see this star. Now, listen up. Eta Carinae is currently up to something. It's been brightening again and is now brighter than at any time since 1864. It's a complex situation. Eta Carinae is really 2 stars, Eta Carinae A and Eta Carinae, what's your guess? Oh, B. There's a 3rd star nearby that's also interacting with the double star's dynamics. Now, without looking, I'm guessing it's named Eta Carinae C. Good guess. Blown out into 2 incredibly massive globes of gas that are expanding at 20 million miles per hour, Eta Carinae is, without a doubt, one of the strangest looking stars you'll ever see. Remember, it's located at a great distance of 7,500 light-years away from us. And if anything had happened to Eta Carinae in the last 7,500 years, like going hypernova, we wouldn't be able to see it, because none of Eta Carinae's electromagnetic radiation would have gotten here yet. Astronomers are keeping a close watch on Eta Carinae because it can go hypernova at any time. Or maybe it already did 5,000 years ago, in which case we'd only have to wait another 2,500 years to see it. Yeah, like I'll put it in my planner. Now, from a list of over 30 likely candidate stars that might go supernova, Rho Cassiopeiae is many astronomers' choice. Another Greek letter, Rho, is the 17th letter in the Greek alphabet. It means that Rho Cassiopeiae is the star with the 17th brightest apparent magnitude in the constellation Cassiopeia. Yet Rho Cass, a nickname, is only one of 7 known yellow hypergiant stars in the Milky Way. It's another whopper. To be seen at magnitude 4.5 from a distance of about 10,000 light-years away, Rho Cass must be a very large star, a hypergiant. Placed where the Sun is, Rho Cass would encompass the orbit of Mars. But it's still yellow. It's not a red giant star. Red indicates a cooler surface temperature. Rho Cass, as huge as it is still as hot on its surface as our Sun, or even a little hotter. That can only mean 2 things. Deep inside its core, Rho Cass is fusing atoms much heavier than hydrogen or helium. Plus, Rho Cass is producing much more energy than a red giant star. In the year 2000, Rho Cass erupted massively. It brightened by 2 orders of magnitude as it ejected 10,000 times the mass of Earth into space at 4 times the speed of sound. Astronomers detected the signature of titanium oxide in this eruption. This means that Rho Cass is much closer to going supernova, or in this particular case, hypernova, than astronomers used to assume. Iron is just a few steps above titanium in the periodic table, and when iron forms, fusion stops and a star collapses. Rho Cass is really close, or more correctly, was really close. Because the eruption we saw in the year 2000 really happened 10,000 years before, many astronomers think Rho Cass has already gone hypernova, formed a black hole, and doesn't even exist anymore. Meanwhile, Betelgeuse caught everyone's attention not so long ago. The star, not the movie. It dimmed dramatically, appearing only 37% as bright as it usually is. Is it getting ready to go supernova? Betelgeuse is by far the brightest star in the whole sky, in infrared light. This is an important fact because it relates to Betelgeuse's status as a supernova candidate, as we shall soon see. Betelgeuse is also named Alpha Orionis, another Greek letter designation. So we should conclude that Betelgeuse is the brightest star in Orion, right? Wrong. It's the second brightest star in its constellation. Rigel, or Beta Orionis, is the brightest one in that region. Figure that one out. It may be because Betelgeuse is classified as a semi-regular variable star, which sounds kind of redundant to me. Its approximately 400-day cycle of pulsation changes its brightness by about 1 full magnitude, going from much brighter than a first magnitude star to closer to a second magnitude star. But never was Betelgeuse observed to dim so rapidly or so drastically as it did recently. So what's going on with it? Well, from late 2019 to mid-2020, Betelgeuse went through a period of substantial dimming during a mass ejection event. The world astronomy community jumped on the situation, and in the course of their investigations, they came up with some surprising new factual data on Betelgeuse. First, Betelgeuse is not as far away as we once thought. The new, more accurate distance for Betelgeuse is 548 light-years. That's 25% closer than previously measured. The second new fact, Betelgeuse's diameter has been reduced by the same percentage. The star is now known to be 25% smaller than previously believed. The cause of Betelgeuse's dramatic dimming was also determined. The giant star ejected a cloud of gas that contained magnesium. The cloud blocked a large portion of the light coming from Betelgeuse and made it appear visually much dimmer than it really was. Magnesium is not halfway to iron on the periodic table, which means Betelgeuse is not as far along on the path to a supernova as was suspected previously. When iron starts forming in the star, it means that this star is close to shutting down its fusion reactions. The next step is implosion. We aren't quite there yet with Betelgeuse. This star emits most of its energy as infrared light, and it also indicates that its core is most probably still burning helium, and not something that would greatly increase the amount of heat, like carbon for instance. Betelgeuse will still go supernova, but not for another 100,000 years. So you can cross it off your supernova list for the time being. And as for how to correctly pronounce Betelgeuse, you can say it any way you like. There are as many different pronunciations out there as there are people who think they know how to pronounce it correctly. Now, supernova 1987A caught astronomers off guard when it lit up the large Magellanic Cloud 100,000 plus light-years away from the Milky Way. That's when attention was turned to a similar star much closer to Earth, Rigel, in the constellation of Orion. Could Rigel surprise us and suddenly go supernova? There's something called the supernova problem that you should, probably know about because it may relate to Rigel going supernova or not. It seems that stars over 17 solar masses don't always go supernova. Recently, a red giant star simply vanished. Once again, it didn't go supernova, it disappeared. This had often been happening in computer simulations of supernovae, and now it finally occurred in real life. Rigel's mass is 21 solar masses. In other words, it's 21 times more massive than our Sun. So, will Rigel go supernova or simply vanish into a black hole that it'll create in its core? Astronomers and physicists continue their work of learning more about the dynamics of massive stars, scouring the sky for the next supernova in the Milky Way. Meanwhile, we can rest confident that we on Earth are in no danger from the harmful effects of nearby supernova explosions. We live in a nice, quiet, peaceful, stellar neighborhood, except for those Martians next door. You're driving to your sister's house when all of a sudden the sky changes. The cool weather becomes scorching hot in a matter of minutes. People who were going for casual autumn strolls have now taken off their jackets and are sweating. People who were planning on going for a weekend ski trip have canceled their plans at the last minute to head to the beach. It was sunset, but the sky has become as bright as day. You fish out your sunglasses and continue driving. Nothing seems normal, but people don't seem to care. You put on the radio and hear everyone panicking about the sun. Nothing is cohesive. They're jumbling up their words and saying a gazillion things at the same time. You take out your phone and see what's happening on social media, and it's all the same thing. Nothing is comprehensible. It's just people talking about how the sun is getting closer to the earth. Footsteps are clacking along a quiet hallway. A man dressed in a sharp suit is making his way to one of the most important meetings of his life. Adam walks through the meeting room while everyone is waiting to hear what he has to say. As the head astrophysicist, it's Adam's responsibility to figure out what is happening and not let the public know what's going on. Otherwise, the whole world will succumb to panic and mass hysteria, which won't be good. He takes a seat at the head of the table while everyone waits for what he has to say. The room is tense and no one is saying a word. He takes off his glasses and places them on the table. Everyone is watching his every move. He takes a few files out of his folder and starts reading. His voice can command a room. My fellow colleagues, I'm afraid the worst has fallen on us. After countless hours of consistent observation and analysis, we have discovered that a piece of the sun has abandoned its orbit and it's making its way toward us. We still don't know which part of the sun, but we know that once it strikes us, we may not have an Earth to call home any longer. The tension in the room is palpable. Everyone looks at each other confused. Adam answers as many questions as he can, but he himself doesn't even have some of the answers. In a matter of minutes, the press leaks some voice recording of Adam's speech, and the world goes berserk. Back to you. You just heard a snippet from Adam's speech and aren't too convinced of its validity. Even though the sky is getting brighter by the second, there's still no reason to panic. You continue driving, and suddenly you sense an intense vibration. Your car lifts off the ground and the windows shatter. You get out and duck for cover. You saw a comet-like object strike down in the middle of nowhere, miles away. More of these objects look like they're heading toward the ground. You start your car and drive off, trying to find a place to hide. Ashes start covering the sky, which makes it even hotter than it already is. The earth is scorching. Meanwhile, traffic is piling up for people who want to escape but don't have any real place to hide. You eventually abandon your car and go on foot, trying to find a place to cool down and get away from the sun's rays. Even though ash is covering the sky, the sun is still blasting through it. You head to the woods and find a cave to cool down in. It's still hot, but at least you can calm down and figure out your next move from there. You get out your phone and try to see if there's any news updates on what's happening, but nothing seems to be updating. You keep refreshing it, but nothing works. Suddenly, you hear some people getting closer, and they order you to step outside of the cave. Adam is with the top scientists in the world, trying to figure out a solution. Everyone is presenting him with solutions, but in the end, none of them are achievable. They've spent hours in the office, but with each passing minute, the sun is getting stronger and the sky is getting brighter. It feels like nothing can be done until Adam has an aha moment. He calls for everyone's attention and asks for the extra people who are not contributing to leave the room. He mentions that they need to launch a rocket into space that can divert the large mass heading toward the Earth before it breaches the atmosphere. They only have a few hours before the sky becomes completely dangerous and unsuitable for flying. As for now, all flights around the world have been canceled. There is only a small window of opportunity to get this rocket out there and save the world. Adam summons the best engineers he can find to adjust the rocket and the astronauts who will volunteer for the mission. They go into quick basic training and start planning for the next steps. After many briefings, they're ready, but they only have one shot at diverting the large object. The astronauts are ready and begin to enter the rocket. Suddenly, you pop up out of nowhere, dressed in a spacesuit. You're one of the prominent astronauts for the mission. Those people who found you in the cave were from NASA, trying to recruit you for the mission. You meet with Adam, and he quickly briefs you about your role. Because the mission is very last minute, there wasn't even time for Adam to sit with you and give you the proper training or brief. You enter the rocket and take your seat. The engineers and scientists gather around to make sure that everything is in order before takeoff. The large object is getting closer, and if the rocket is delayed, then it'll melt when it reaches the final part of the mission. You're strapped in, and the rocket starts rattling. All systems are in order. 3, 2, 1, blast off. The rocket picks up and shoots into the sky. There are extra layers of visor shield protection, since it feels like you're getting closer to the sun. After a few minutes, the rocket leaves the Earth's atmosphere and is at the forefront of the large object. The rocket suspends itself in a certain strategic position, waiting for the right time to swat the object out of the Earth's trajectory. Meanwhile, everyone back on Earth is hiding in bunkers when the loose debris strikes. A cleanup team will be ready to get rid of the space rocks that will be scorching hot. The bunkers are equipped with food, water, and electricity in case they have to remain underground for a while. Only a few minutes left until the moment comes. You press a button and get ready to deploy a large spike that's as long as the Statue of Liberty. The spike is kept on a stand that's attached to the rocket. It will fire the spike like a bow and arrow and shoot it straight through the large object, breaking it before it melts. There's less than 1 minute before impact. The arrow is stretched and released. The tip of the arrow has a titanium drill that will continue drilling through the object as soon as it hits. The arrow is released and shoots through space, breaking little pieces of space objects along the way. As it speeds through, it finally hits the large object and drills through it. But nothing seems to be happening. The drill is barely getting through the center. Luckily, Adam had already thought of a backup plan. The rocket, still suspended in its spot, fires a laser where the spike is to speed things up. The laser starts melting through to get to the core. The object is getting closer and is speeding up. The object still hasn't broken into pieces yet. Less than 2 minutes until impact, and everyone is running out of options. Adam has one last trick up his sleeve. He orders everyone to evacuate the rocket and move to the backup pods. He wants to put the rocket on a straight collision course with the large object. There's too much confusion. Everyone, including you, quickly heads to the pods and ejects to a safe distance. These pods won't float around in space since they have pressurized air that allows the pods to move in whatever direction the driver wants. Everyone shoots out of the rocket while it goes full speed at the object. They're both going, heading for each other at full speed. There are only a few seconds until impact. The whole world is watching. This rocket is now the only hope there is to save everyone on Earth. The rocket starts melting before impact, and suddenly, a large shockwave ripples through the sky. The rocket was able to break the large object into many pieces. The problem now is the smaller debris falling onto Earth. But since everyone is in bunkers, they're safe. Adam and his colleagues celebrate. You and the rest of the astronauts are safe and make it safely back to Earth. The next phase for everyone on Earth is to rebuild everything that was destroyed. People will have to start everything from scratch, but this is only the beginning of a new chapter in life.
Across millennia, scattered among clay tablets, sacred scrolls, and whispered myths, humanity has preserved haunting tales of a celestial anomaly, a rogue planet, a cosmic saboteur whose rare appearance heralds disaster and upheaval. The Sumerians called it Nibiru, the planet of crossing. Egyptians feared it as the destroyer. Biblical texts knew it as the wormwood star. Are these merely the colorful myths of ancient peoples, or are they fragmented memories of an all-too-real cosmic threat? Modern science, once quick to dismiss such legends, is now forced to reconsider. In 2016, astronomers Konstantin Batygin and Mike Brown from Caltech presented mathematical evidence suggesting the existence of a massive planet at the far edge of our solar system, Planet 9. Their calculations describe a world 5 to 10 times the mass of Earth, on a highly elongated orbit that takes between 10,000 and 20,000 years to complete a single revolution around the Sun. Here's where ancient myth and modern astrophysics begin to blur. Sumerian cuneiform tablets, dating as far back as the 4th millennium BCE, contain astonishingly accurate astronomical data. They describe a solar system of 12 celestial bodies, including a mysterious 12th planet, Nibiru. How did ancient people know about Neptune, discovered only in 1846, or Pluto in 1930? Were they simply guessing, or did they remember something we've forgotten? One of the most controversial voices in this debate is researcher Zecharia Sitchin. He spent decades interpreting ancient Mesopotamian texts and proposed a radical theory that Nibiru is a habitable world with a sweeping elliptical orbit, home to an advanced race known as the Anunnaki, beings who once visited Earth. Mainstream academia has rejected Sitchin's translations, but the uncanny parallels between his claims and recent astronomical findings are hard to ignore. Let's focus on what the data tells us. Something is warping the orbits of distant objects in the Kuiper Belt, a vast icy region beyond Neptune. These objects behave as if being shepherded by a massive, unseen force. The dwarf planet Sedna, for example, follows a wildly unusual orbit that can't be explained by known gravitational influences. And then there's the Kuiper Cliff, an abrupt drop-off in the number of objects beyond 50 astronomical units. What's causing it? Something or someone. These anomalies have left astronomers scratching their heads and have fueled growing speculation that a massive, unseen planet is hiding in the dark outskirts of our solar system. Ancient texts from multiple civilizations describe apocalyptic upheavals linked to a celestial intruder. The Egyptian Ipuwer papyrus eerily recounts plagues and chaos. The river is blood, the earth turned upside down, days are shrouded in darkness. The Babylonian Epic of Era speaks of a time when the stars left their appointed paths. These aren't just poetic metaphors. They're historical shockwaves echoing from a forgotten trauma. So what happens if Nibiru, or Planet 9, makes its next approach? Even without a direct collision, the consequences could be catastrophic. Its gravity might tilt Earth's axis, triggering sudden climate shifts. It could awaken tectonic fault lines and stir dormant volcanoes. Disturbed asteroid belts might send deadly space rocks hurtling toward us. It could disrupt our magnetosphere, disabling electronics and satellites. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of this theory is the cycle. Sumerian texts suggest that Nibiru returns roughly every 3,600 years. If this is true, its last passage might have occurred around 1600 BCE, a time curiously aligned with the collapse of Bronze Age civilizations, a period marked by mass migrations, natural disasters, and inexplicable cultural decline. Was this coincidence or consequence? The clock might be ticking again. Today, the hunt for Planet 9 continues, using the world's most powerful telescopes and cutting-edge simulations. We stand on the edge of either confirming the greatest myth ever told, or revealing that ancient peoples tried, in the only language they had, to warn us. It may not bear the name Nibiru. It may not carry golden tablets or alien emissaries. But if it exists, its return will reshape everything we think we know about history, science, and our place in the cosmos. One thing is certain, our solar system is far from tamed. It harbors secrets in its coldest, darkest corners, riddles older than civilization itself. And perhaps, just perhaps, the old stories were never stories at all. Maybe they were prophecies. Maybe they were the echo of survivors. Maybe the star of change is already on its way. For centuries, humanity has believed in a linear path of evolution, a slow, steady climb from primitive survival to modern innovation. But what if that story is incomplete? What if the turning points in our development weren't purely natural? Roughly 6 million years ago, an ancestor of modern apes rose to its feet, setting in motion a journey that would eventually lead to Homo sapiens. For hundreds of thousands of years, progress was glacial. We tamed fire, carved basic tools, and lived hand-to-mouth existences. Then, just 20,000 years ago, everything changed. In a span shorter than a blink in evolutionary terms, we went from hunter-gatherers to architects of vast megalithic temples, builders of empires, and eventually, explorers of space. How do we make sense of that? Some argue we can't, not with conventional science alone. This explosion of intelligence and innovation has led to alternative theories. One of the most provocative, that we had help from beings far more advanced than ourselves. Welcome to the world of the Anunnaki. They're more than myth. They're the center of a sprawling theory that suggests humanity's greatest leaps weren't entirely human. According to ancient Sumerian texts, these so-called gods came not from the heavens in a spiritual sense, but from the sky in the most literal way imaginable, another planet. And they didn't just visit, they stayed, they ruled, and perhaps most importantly, they altered us. Long before Egypt erected its pyramids, or Stonehenge crowned the English countryside, the Sumerians were building cities, inventing writing, crafting legal codes, and mapping the stars with uncanny accuracy. Their civilization bloomed in Mesopotamia nearly 7,000 years ago, and it left behind cuneiform tablets that continue to baffle and inspire. These records tell of beings called the Anunnaki, translated as those who came from heaven to earth. They introduced tools, language, agriculture, and even mathematics. But the texts also hint at a darker truth. These beings didn't just uplift humanity. They enslaved it. Why? One word: gold. Ancient records describe massive gold mining operations that predated technological society. But here's the twist. To early humans, gold was worthless. It had no utility, no exchange value, no role in survival. yet we dug for it with obsessive intensity. According to the Sumerians, the Anunnaki needed gold, not for jewelry, but for survival. Their home planet, Nibiru, was dying. Its atmosphere was decaying, and gold particles, when dispersed in the air, could reflect solar radiation and purify environmental conditions. Earth had gold, lots of it. And so, the Anunnaki came. At first, they did the labor themselves, but mining Earth's crust was exhausting. Frustrated and desperate, they considered a more efficient solution: genetic engineering. If they could merge their DNA with that of early humans, they could create a workforce suited to the task, strong, obedient, and intelligent. Enki, one of the Anunnaki leaders, took the lead. Early experiments were monstrous, deformed hybrids that echo legends of giants, cyclops, and mythic beastlists. Many were destroyed, others abandoned. But eventually, success came. Using one of their own as a surrogate, they implanted a fertilized egg, part Anunnaki, part hominin. The result was a child named Adamu. Sound familiar? To many, Adamu is the precursor to the biblical Adam. The parallels between religious creation stories and Sumerian myth are too sharp to ignore. Created in our image, from clay, the Sumerians were telling a story that would echo through ages, morphing into sacred texts and oral traditions around the globe. Adamu and his descendants became laborers, building a society under Anunnaki rule. But something strange happened. These hybrids didn't just follow. They learned, they questioned, they grew in number and complexity. Eventually, they became us. Here's where the timeline warps. Homo sapiens have existed for over 300,000 years. Yet for most of that time, we were indistinguishable from animals in both behavior and cognition. Then, seemingly overnight, we developed art, architecture, religion, governance, and science. No smooth curve, just a spike. How? Some point to climate shifts or population booms, but others look to Nibiru. Modern astronomers have observed gravitational anomalies beyond Neptune, suggesting the presence of a massive unseen planet. Dubbed Planet 9 or Planet X, it eerily mirrors the Sumerian Nibiru, which they claimed had an elliptical orbit that brought it near Earth every 3,600 years. The timing of historical jumps in human development? It aligned suspiciously well. According to legend, as Nibiru approached Earth, the Anunnaki would return. Some think they never left. Others believe they're watching, waiting. What did they look like? Relics suggest beings 3-4 meters tall, with elongated skulls and high foreheads, features mimicked by ancient civilizations who bound the skulls of their elite. They wore ornate robes, had light skin, and luminous eyes. Their leader was Anu. His sons, Enki and Enlil, managed Earth's operations. The Anunnaki might have left behind more than just myths, hidden knowledge, lost technology, even genetic markers that still echo within our DNA. The idea is unsettling, yet alluring, that our creators may return, that we are not the pinnacle, but the product. And here's another twist. Some researchers argue that humans don't even belong here. In the book, Humans Are Not From Earth, anomalies in our biology are explored. Why are we uniquely vulnerable to sunlight? Why do we suffer chronic back pain? Why are childbirths so difficult? Every other species fits perfectly into Earth's environment. We arguably do not. Could it be because we're hybrids? Part Earth, part something else. From gold mines to rocket ships, from caves to satellites, our species has always been driven by something deep and inexplicable. Maybe it's curiosity, maybe ambition, or maybe, just maybe, it's a buried memory of where we came from and who made us. So next time you look up at the night sky, remember, the answers to humanity's origin may not lie beneath our feet, but far above our heads. And the Anunnaki, their story isn't over. It may be just beginning.
As we venture deeper into cosmic exploration, we encounter a plethora of exoplanets that defy our Earth-centric notions of what a planet should be like. From pitch-black gas giants to planets being torn apart by their own stars, these strange worlds offer a sobering glimpse into the extreme and varied conditions the universe harbors. In this overview, we delve into some of the most peculiar, hostile, and enigmatic planets known to humanity. Tres 2b. Located in a remote corner of the universe, Tres 2b is a world where darkness reigns supreme. Forget a sky filled with twinkling stars or even the barest sliver of a moon. Here, it's an abyss of darkness. This gas behemoth is 1.5 times more voluminous than Jupiter and possesses an uncanny ability to absorb light even more efficiently than charcoal. It's a place where photons go to die. Its atmosphere, torrid and choking, may occasionally display a dark ruby-red hue caused by air heated to temperatures similar to molten lava. It's a world that flips our understanding of night sky on its head. 55 Cancri E. Within the 55 Cancri system, a peculiar hellish world orbits its star in an uncomfortably tight dance. 55 Cancri E is subjected to such intense heat that half of its planetary face has become a seething ocean of molten lava. Picture an entire hemisphere ablaze, a burning sea without end. The other half is a perpetual desert of darkness, never touched by the light of its nearby sun. And between these two extremes lies a narrow band of perpetual dusk, where twilight lasts forever. The stark contrast between the burning and the desolate creates an eerie landscape of hopelessness. HD 189733b. At first glance, you'd think HD 189733b is an artist's impression of an alien ocean world. Its surface appears to be beautifully patterned with swirls of blue and white. But this beauty is deceiving. Those captivating patterns are the result of silicate particles in the planet's turbulent atmosphere, which conspire to create a storm of glass rain. That's right, glass shards falling from the sky, propelled by winds reaching speeds of 5,400 miles per hour. Anything and everything in its path would be ripped to shreds in moments. PSRB 1257 plus 12. Imagine a place where your very atoms are torn apart. That's what is happening to the planets in this system, thanks to their parent star, a pulsar. Pulsars are the remnants of exploded stars, and they release potent electromagnetic pulses. These energy bursts are gradually erasing the existence of the exoplanets in this doomed system, breaking them down at an atomic level. Their fate is to slowly dissipate into the cold void of space. Kepler 70b. Once upon a time, Kepler 70b might have resembled Jupiter, a gas giant enveloped in a thick atmosphere. But its parent star went through an explosive midlife crisis, expanding into a red giant and gobbling up Kepler 70b in the process. Now, this planet is a fiery rock with temperatures that exceed those on the surface of the sun. The extreme heat is causing the planet to evaporate. Its days are numbered. WASP 12b. Tragic might be the most fitting word for WASP 12b. Its massive parent star is pulling it into an oblong shape, reminiscent of an egg. As it spirals closer, the gravitational pull becomes even stronger, signaling an inevitable fatal attraction. In a cosmic time frame, WASP 12b is already on its deathbed. Gliese 436b. Imagine a world so contradictory that it boggles the mind. Gliese 436b is both scorching hot and eternally icy at the same time. Despite being hotter than an oven, its surface ice doesn't melt away. Instead, it burns continuously due to the planet's intense gravity, which keeps it solid. Venus, our neighboring planet, is another nightmarish world. With a hellish atmosphere, corrosive sulfuric acid rains, and surface temperatures that even outstrip those of Mercury, it is truly Earth's evil twin. Dimidium is another inhospitable planet, tidally locked to its star. One side is scorched to temperatures exceeding 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, while ferocious winds of 600 miles per hour sweep the surface. This gas giant even experiences molten iron rain.
In December 2016, a bombshell revelation rocked the world of classified intelligence. WikiLeaks had released top-secret Pentagon documents exposing a hidden war between the US Air Force and unidentified flying objects. According to these explosive files, the center of this interstellar conflict was none other than Antarctica, Earth's most remote and enigmatic continent. During the summer of 2016, the US Missile Defense System detected an entire fleet of UFOs rising from the Southern Ocean and heading at high speed toward the Mexican coast. American fighter jets were immediately scrambled, but just as suddenly as they appeared, the mysterious objects vanished from radar, leaving behind only questions and ripples of fear in high-ranking circles. And this, insiders claimed, was only one of many such encounters in a long-running, covert battle beneath the ice. The story spread like wildfire across forums, alternative news sites, and YouTube channels. Eyewitnesses reported that the surfacing UFOs created enormous waves, damaging ships in the area. Other reports spoke of alien bases discovered deep beneath Antarctic ice, with entire zones marked off-limits to the public. Some even claimed that Russian President Vladimir Putin was being briefed on secret skirmishes between US forces and non-human entities. The truth seemed ready to explode into public view. But how much of this is real? And did WikiLeaks actually publish such world-shattering documents? Since 2010, WikiLeaks has indeed released hundreds of thousands of files, diplomatic cables, military reports, and surveillance data. While some documents reference unusual aerial phenomena, none mention extraterrestrial conflict in Antarctica. The story's origin can be traced to a post on European Times, a dubious website known for spreading unverified claims. It cited anonymous Russian intelligence officers as the source. From there, the tale snowballed through conspiracy blogs that forged fake scans of supposed US documents, complete with seals, signatures, and official stamps. Yet under closer examination, these documents crumble. Fonts are inconsistent with military formatting. Signatures are copy-pasted from unrelated sources, and crucially, no corroborating evidence exists. Why did this theory stick? Despite its shaky foundation, the story refuses to die. Why? 1. Real secrecy in Antarctica. The continent is governed by strict international treaties. Military activity is restricted, creating a veil of mystery that invites speculation. 2. Historical myths. Tales of Nazi bases, ancient alien ruins, and lost civilizations buried under Antarctic ice have long fueled the imaginations of conspiracy theorists. 3. Real UFO sightings. The US military has confirmed encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena, such as the famous 2004 Tic Tac incident, adding legitimacy to UFO narratives. 4. The WikiLeaks halo. For many, anything associated with WikiLeaks automatically seems credible. That association lent weight to the fabricated documents. Antarctica's vast, silent expanse is a fertile ground for myth-making. From secret bases to wormholes, the continent has become a canvas for every kind of fantastical speculation. Even real locations like Lake Vostok, a subglacial lake Russian scientists spent decades drilling into, have been dragged into alien lore despite zero scientific evidence. Unusual military flights near Antarctica in 2016 and 2017, including Boeing RC-135 reconnaissance planes, added fuel to the fire. Officials cited training and climate research, but to believers, they were part of a hidden campaign against otherworldly threats. The tale of a secret UFO war exposed by WikiLeaks is thrilling, but ultimately, it doesn't hold up. There's no credible documentation, no trustworthy sources, and no confirmation from WikiLeaks itself. Like many conspiracy theories, this one blends fragments of truth with layers of fiction, creating a narrative too seductive to let go. But seductive isn't the same as true. Behind the allure lies a stark reality. No aliens, no Antarctic war, just another myth, thriving in the shadows of secrecy and our eternal hunger for the extraordinary. Still, as long as Antarctica stays silent, the legends will grow, because nothing feeds the imagination like a blank, frozen slate at the edge of the world.
When watching a beautiful sunset over the sea and in the mountains, have you ever thought about what a sunset on Mars looks like? Or on Venus? Do they have the same reddish hues as sunsets on Earth? Not really. You see, sunsets look very different on different planets because of the composition of their atmospheres. Sunlight scatters off of the molecules that make up an atmosphere. This process is more effective at shorter wavelengths, which is the blue end of the visible spectrum. That's why we perceive the sky on our home planet as blue. But at sunset, light needs to travel longer distances through the atmosphere. That's why we see yellow and red hues. Now, let's move to Mercury and check what sunsets look like there. Both sunrises and sunsets on Mercury are views to behold. The sun seems 2.5 times larger in the sky over this planet than when you look at it from the surface of Earth. It also rises and sets twice during a Mercurian day. It rises, arcs across the sky, stops, moves back to the rising horizon, stops again, and restarts its way toward the setting horizon. Such bizarre maneuvers occur because Mercury rotates 3 times for every 2 orbits around the Sun, and its orbit is extremely elliptical. But if you expect to see a blazing sky and the hues of red, you'll be disappointed. Mercury has almost no atmosphere, so its sky is always black since light doesn't get scattered at all. Let's continue our journey and go to Venus. There, at sunset, a bright yellow fades into orange, brown, and then when the sun disappears, black. The planet rotates on its axis very slowly. So to see a sunset, you'd have to wait almost 1/16 times as long as you would on our home planet, half of a Venusian year. Mars is widely known as the red planet because of its rusty color caused by the presence of iron oxide in its soil. But sunsets on this planet would look surprisingly blue if you watched them from the surface of Mars. Fine dust in the atmosphere of the planet scatters light and makes the blue hues around the sun's area of the sky brighter. A Uranian sunset is azure, fading into royal blue with some hints of turquoise. The pretty colors come from the interaction of sunlight with the planet's atmosphere, which mainly consists of hydrogen, helium, and methane. These gases absorb the longer wavelength red portion of the light, and the shorter wavelength blue and green light gets scattered when photons bounce off the gas molecules and other particles in the atmosphere. In 2014, scientists working with data received by NASA's Cassini mission showed what a sunset on Titan could look like. The largest moon of Saturn is surrounded by haze and smog. It's the only satellite in the solar system with a measurable atmosphere, which mostly consists of nitrogen, around 95%, and methane, about 5%. High in the atmosphere of this moon, the nitrogen and methane get split apart by the ultraviolet light from the sun and high-energy particles accelerated by Saturn's magnetic field. The compounds produced during this process create a thick, orange-colored smog. As the sun sinks toward the horizon, these orange hues turn into a deep brown. Now look at this. It looks like a sunset on Earth, right? But it might actually be what it looks like on Saturn. We have to say might because, just like all images from space, we can rarely get the color right. They are neither true nor false. They just represent the physical processes underlying the subjects of the images. As for the photo of a sunset on Saturn, it's hard to say if it looks exactly like this before we get more scientific data.
The Black Knight, the mystery that won't let go. What if I told you that there is an object in space that defies explanation, an object that was not created by any space agency, has no official owner, and whose origin remains shrouded in mystery? You might think it's just another fantastic myth or a publicity stunt, but the story of the Black Knight will surprise you. You've probably heard about the Black Knight, a satellite that wasn't launched by humans but has been orbiting our planet for years. But how did it end up in orbit, and who is behind its creation? The answer to this question is hidden in the dark corners of space, and this enigma continues to haunt scientists. Signals from space, the beginning of the journey. Long before humans even thought about creating satellites, our world was already receiving signals from space. It all started in 1899, when the brilliant Nikola Tesla was conducting experiments on wireless energy transmission. In fact, he didn't just come up with ideas for future technologies, but also began to pick up strange signals that couldn't be explained by any earthly sources. This wasn't just static, this was a clear signal, which Tesla interpreted as a message from outer space. It was too strange to be a coincidence. But what was it? For a long time, scientists and researchers couldn't find an explanation. Ordinary radio waves, it seemed, couldn't have caused these signals. This mystical phenomenon marked an important milestone in the history of space exploration, but it still didn't provide any clear answers. Forgotten satellites and space paranoia. Decades passed, and by 1954, more strange reports began to emerge. During this time, amateur radio operators around the world began picking up unusual signals, seemingly coming from objects in Earth's orbit. Amid the Cold War, this sparked concern. If the Soviet Union could launch satellites, it meant the US should have been doing the same. But here's what was strange. No one knew about satellites moving along unconventional orbits. At this time, rumors started circulating about mysterious objects keeping watch over our planet. Some claimed these were satellites created by an unknown civilization. Others suggested they were just space junk, but none of the theories could explain the behavior of these objects. The Black Knight, the first glimpse. In 1960, the rumors intensified, and many experts began stating that Earth was being monitored by a mysterious satellite. Then, in 1998, during the STS-88 mission, astronauts accidentally snapped a photo while flying, capturing something that would be debated for years. In one of the images, a dark object was clearly visible against the backdrop of Earth. It looked like an artificial satellite, but its shape and structure didn't resemble anything we knew. This was too strange to be ordinary debris. Moreover, the object was clearly moving in orbit, not just some discarded space junk. For everyone who saw these photos, this dark object became the embodiment of a true cosmic mystery, full of unanswered questions. What was it really? There are many theories, but none of them offer a definitive answer. Some scientists argue that the Black Knight is an ancient satellite placed by an unknown civilization, perhaps even before humans arrived. This satellite could have been designed to monitor our planet, or serve some other purpose that remains unfathomable to us. It seems like it's from another era, another time. Others believe the Black Knight is an artificial object created by extraterrestrials. The theory that aliens might be observing us is nothing new. According to some researchers, this object could have been sent as part of a study of earthly life, acting as some sort of spy satellite to watch humanity. It might be part of a hidden project that's beyond our understanding. But there's also the more down-to-earth explanation. Some believe it's just space debris that accidentally ended up in Earth's orbit. But with each new photo and each new investigation of the Black Knight, this theory seems less and less likely. Why do we still not know? What's most surprising about this story is that, despite all efforts by scientists, we still don't know what the Black Knight actually is. Official agencies remain silent, and space agencies aren't rushing to share any information about it. Perhaps this is the greatest mystery of all. The Black Knight isn't just a satellite, but something more, something beyond our understanding. It might be a witness to ancient history, or a messenger from the future, observing our development. This object continues to inspire researchers, raise questions, and stir the imaginations of people worldwide. No matter what's really behind it, the Black Knight remains a living symbol of the mysterious and unexplored cosmos. We can only guess what it really is and what answers it holds. But one thing is certain, its mystery will not leave you indifferent. The future of the Black Knight. With each passing year, the mystery of the Black Knight grows deeper. Space missions continue to explore our satellite world, and scientists are increasingly discussing its origin. Who knows, perhaps one day we will solve this riddle. But until then, the Black Knight will remain one of the most intriguing objects in space. And maybe, just maybe, we will witness the moment when a new chapter of history unfolds in space. Perhaps this dark satellite will be the key that opens the door to a new world, a world we still don't understand.
So, we might be getting closer to finding a massive icy planet beyond Neptune's orbit. Yeah, sorry Pluto, still not you. Recently, some universe mapping using data from a telescope in Hawaii eliminated about 78% of the possible locations for this mysterious Waldo from space. Some people call it Planet 9, while others prefer Planet X. Either way, it's been causing controversy since its existence was first proposed, and that is mainly because no study so far can answer the big question: does it really exist? If discovered, Planet 9 would rank as the 5th largest planet in our solar system, with a mass 10 times that of Earth. It's also theorized to be gaseous, like Uranus. The initial study on Planet 9, dating back to 2016, suggests that this colossal new planet orbits the Sun 29 times farther out than Neptune, which sits at about 2.8 billion miles. As a result, the Planet 9 would take between 10,000 and 20,000 years to complete a single orbit around the Sun. If confirmed, this yet-to-be-understood world would dominate a region larger than any other known planet in our cosmic neighborhood. These are all intriguing hypotheses, but without a single piece of evidence or observation to back them up. Before dismissing this as a wild guess, it is important to note that these researchers relied on complex mathematical modeling and computer simulations to speculate about the planet's characteristics, because that's what they do. The hypothetical presence of this planet would explain various mysterious features located beyond Neptune. We are specifically talking about the Kuiper Belt, a huge donut-shaped region filled with icy debris left over from the formation of the solar system, including comets and dwarf planets like Pluto. What happens is that the 6 farthest objects in the Kuiper Belt exhibit elliptical orbits that are all oriented in a similar direction within physical space and tilted approximately 30 degrees downward relative to the orbital plane of our 8 known planets. What's strange here is that, despite their distinct orbital velocities around the solar system, they maintain this alignment. The likelihood of such alignment occurring randomly is extremely low, around 0.007%. So, here comes Planet 9, a hypothetical massive celestial body that offers a plausible explanation for this strange phenomenon, potentially exerting gravitational influence to shape these orbits. The initial theory didn't hold up for long, facing accusations of observational bias and calculation errors. Then, in 2017, another study popped up, sparking back the idea that maybe Planet 9 is out there after all. This time, Spanish astronomers tried a novel approach, focusing on observing extreme trans-Neptunian objects. These celestial bodies orbit the Sun in highly stretched elliptical paths, with average distances exceeding 13 billion miles. The research suggests that the distances between these objects' nodes and the Sun might provide clues to Planet 9's location. You see, these nodes are the points where a celestial body's orbit intersects the solar system's plane. When these objects reach these points, they're more likely to interact with other solar system bodies, potentially causing significant changes in their orbits or even collisions. So, if the trajectory of these extreme trans-Neptunian objects remains stable, everything's fine. But if it's not, well, that's a sign that something else, something big, is messing with their path. And that's exactly what the research found. There is something unseen out there, throwing these objects off course. And that something could be a planet, chilling at a distance between 300 to 400 times farther from the Sun than Earth. To this day, the study of the extreme trans-Neptunian objects is the strongest evidence we've got for Planet 9's existence. And if you're still not convinced by this theory, know that strange motions like these have led to planetary discoveries before. Neptune, for instance, was spotted because Uranus's motion didn't quite agree with the predictions of Newtonian gravity. But the deflection of its orbit could be explained if it was caused by a pull of an undiscovered planet. And just like that, we discovered Neptune. Now, the year is 2021, and there's all this buzz about Planet 9 again. After correcting some old guesses, studies are now leaning towards the idea that this mystery world follows an epic loop around the Sun every 7,000 years. That is massive news, because it means this planet might be closer than we ever thought, making it easier for our telescopes to spot it. The paper also suggests there is a whopping 99% chance that the funky orbits of these distant objects are all because of this unseen planet, not just some cosmic coincidence. Now, the odds of this whole situation being a fluke are down to a 1 in 250 chance, which is much better than the 1 in 10,000 chance back in 2016. All these optimistic numbers have brought us to where we are today, keeping our hopes and working on better equipment to continue the mission of spotting Planet 9. As mentioned earlier, researchers in Hawaii created some kind of treasure map utilizing the Panoramic Survey Telescope and Rapid Response System to eliminate 78% of its locations. This is great news, considering how challenging it is to find a planet-sized needle in a cosmic haystack. But unfortunately, Planet 9's presence remains a ghost in the dark outer reaches of our solar system. Enthusiasts are still convinced of its existence and believe it is only a matter of time before we celebrate the discovery of Earth's new cosmic cousin. They're putting their hopes on the Vera C. Rubin Observatory, which is currently under construction in Chile and is scheduled to begin science operations in late 2025. Over the course of 10 years, this observatory will scan the entire southern hemisphere sky every few nights with a 27-foot, fast-moving telescope equipped with the largest digital camera in the world. The idea is to catalog everything in the solar system, reaching out to and beyond Neptune, and tracking the movements of millions of celestial objects, including space junk, asteroids, comets, and stars. If Planet 9 is indeed out there, this next-generation telescope could be the one to find it. The existence of this mysterious planet is far from being universally accepted in the scientific community. That is simply because Planet 9 isn't the only explanation for the strange phenomenon occurring beyond Neptune. One theory suggests that a group of distant objects, such as dwarf planets, comets, and moons, might be collectively influencing the orbits of the extreme trans-Neptunian objects. Others believe that a black hole is behind all this. These compressed masses are some of the densest objects in the universe, potentially capable of affecting the orbits of other masses, like how this supposed ghost Planet 9 is believed to be doing. Another bold perspective suggests that our current understanding of the laws of gravity is flawed, actually incomplete. This theory, known as modified Newtonian dynamics, proposes that these distant icy objects exhibit strange behavior not due to influence from another planet, but rather because the immense gravitational field of the Milky Way is influencing them. However, even supporters of this theory acknowledge that it is too early to draw firm conclusions, and much more extensive research is still required. While we continue our relentless hunt for Planet 9, some astronomers have taken it a step further, suggesting the existence of a hypothetical Planet 10. This world has a mass and size like that of Mars or Earth and is located on the edges of the Kuiper Belt. But the thing is, if this alleged Planet 10 is indeed as small as scientists believe, it might not have enough gravity to clear its orbit of debris. And that is pretty similar to what happens with Pluto, being one of the reasons why it got into trouble back in 2006. So yeah, it's better not to get too excited. This supposed Planet 10 might end up classified as another dwarf planet.
It was the year 2015 when U.S. Navy pilots flying training missions off the East Coast saw something truly eerie. They spotted oval-shaped objects moving quickly over the water. They seemed to rotate as they flew. At first, the pilots thought it was just one object, but soon they realized there were many of them, moving in unusual ways. These objects didn't look like normal aircraft. They didn't have visible engines, didn't produce exhaust, and didn't just hover near the sea like helicopters would. Some of them appeared at altitudes of 30,000 feet and were moving faster than the speed of sound. The strangest and scariest thing? The pilots had been observing similar objects almost every day for months. Mind you, those weren't rookie pilots. One of them was an experienced pilot with 10 years in the Navy. He, along with his fellow pilots, knew what typical aircraft looked like and how to stay calm under pressure. It wasn't until 2019 that the public heard about those sightings. That's when the New York Times published an article revealing them. The article included video footage taken by the pilots' plane cameras, which was later confirmed by the US Navy in April 2020. The Navy officially released the videos soon after. In recent years, sightings of UFOs, now called unexplained aerial phenomena, have been reported by other reliable sources as well. The US government has started to take these sightings seriously and has even brought in scientists to quietly investigate what might be behind them. So far, we still don't know exactly what the pilots and others have seen. But this growing scientific interest is pushing us closer to finding out more. While military pilots reporting UFOs might be a recent development, the public has been observing and reporting them for decades. In fact, the UFO craze in the US can be traced back to the summer of 1947. On June 14th of that year, a rancher discovered strange debris on his land near Roswell, New Mexico. At first, he thought it was from a kite. But even after looking through the bits of rubber, tinfoil, paper, and wood, he still couldn't make sense of it. The rancher then told the local sheriff about his find, and since his ranch was close to the Roswell Army airfield, the sheriff reported it to the military. Officers came to check it out, and couldn't identify the wreckage either. The next day, the Army issued a press release saying that they had recovered the remains of a flying saucer. The local newspaper even ran a headline, "RAAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell." But just a few days later, the Army changed its story, claiming the debris was from a weather balloon. By then, though, the excitement over UFOs had already sparked, and UFO fever spread across the nation. Now, UFOs are real, in the sense that people have indeed seen objects they can't identify in the sky. But when people ask, are UFOs real? They usually mean, are we being visited by aliens? And science doesn't have an answer to that yet. After the Roswell incident, UFO sightings became more frequent. People made wild claims, saying they'd met aliens or even been abducted. These stories were mysterious and captivating. No wonder they gained traction. The government didn't help much since it was keeping its own secrets. Eventually, they admitted to hiding something, but it wasn't little green men from other planets. In 1995, the Air Force released a report explaining that the debris found on Brazel's ranch wasn't from a weather balloon, but from Project Mogul, a secret Cold War program that used balloons to detect missile launches of certain countries. As for the alien bodies people claim to have seen, they were crash test dummies used in experiments with ejection seats. In 2021, the US government released a brief report on UAPs, aka unexplained aerial phenomena, stating that they have found no evidence of aliens. At the same time, they acknowledged that many UAP sightings had been recorded since 2004, and those remained unexplained. According to the report, those sightings did not necessarily point to alien spacecraft. Some could be birds, debris like party balloons, secret military projects, or even new technology from other countries. In May 2022, Congress held a public hearing on UFOs, and high-ranking military officials testified there. They revealed that since 2021, 400 unexplained sightings had been documented, but none suggested extraterrestrial life. At the same time, there's more and more evidence hinting that Earth may not be the only place with life in the universe. Earth itself is 4.5 billion years old, and life emerged here around 3.5 to 4 billion years ago. Life on Earth began fairly quickly, which means that the process of life forming wasn't overly difficult. And if life could begin easily on Earth, it's likely that it could also start on many other planets in the universe. The Milky Way galaxy alone contains 1 trillion planets, and there may be trillions more in the universe. Given these numbers, there is a lot of potential for life elsewhere. However, just because there's a possibility of life elsewhere doesn't necessarily mean that aliens have visited Earth. That's why SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence researchers, are focused on detecting signs of life elsewhere in the universe, not on studying UFOs. For a long time, most scientists dismissed the study of UFOs as pseudoscience. That's why many researchers interested in UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, stayed silent to avoid being seen as eccentric. But this has started to change. In June 2022, NASA created a team of scientific experts to search for the unknown in air and space. The researchers suggested using NASA's huge amount of space data to assist in the study of UAPs. The team also made it clear that studies of UAPs should focus on evidence and data, not speculation. Instead of simply collecting stories or relying on accidental sightings, the researchers used telescopes to capture footage of the sky. They gather this data and then analyze it with the help of artificial intelligence. They plan to add more observatories, and over 100 scientists are already involved. Astrobiologist Julia DeMarines suggests that some UAP sightings could be caused by unusual weather conditions. For instance, spacecraft launched near sunset can create strange effects. The gases expelled by spacecraft reflect only the light reaching the upper atmosphere at that time. And since the sunlight remains reflective for a long period, such sightings can seem unexplainable. UAPs might also be caused by light reflecting off communication satellites. But could UAPs really be alien spaceships? People often expect first contact with alien life to be dramatic, but the reality might be more subtle. Our first encounter with alien life may actually be discovering their technology. For example, we might find a piece of space debris that didn't originate on Earth, like spotting an empty plastic bag blowing through space. We'd know it didn't come from Earth, but we wouldn't know where it came from. Another possibility is that the aliens we might encounter may no longer exist. In 1961, astronomer Frank Drake developed the Drake equation, which estimates how many alien civilizations might be capable of sending signals. The equation considers factors like the rate at which stars form and the number of planets capable of supporting life in a Goldilocks zone, a habitable zone located at the right distance from a star for water to remain a liquid. However, one key factor in the equation is represented by L, which stands for the length of time technological civilizations produce detectable signs of their existence. Humanity has only been technologically advanced for a little over 100 years, in a universe that is nearly 14 billion years old. It means that the timing for civilizations to overlap might be rare. Many civilizations might have existed before us, and many may come after us, but the chance that we overlap with theirs is slim. Despite this, some scientists believe that it won't be long before we find definitive evidence of alien life.
Now, I don't want to freak you out, but something bizarre has erupted in the depths of space. It was an explosion brighter than billions of suns. But the real mystery is that it doesn't match anything astronomers have ever seen. Usually, cosmic events like this follow familiar patterns, but not this one. It's a cosmic anomaly. This strange cosmic explosion has left astronomers totally baffled. It could be a super rare event where everything lines up just right, or it could be something completely new, never seen before. This event was first detected by an X-ray space telescope called the Einstein probe on April 8, 2024. It first appeared to be a regular gamma-ray burst. Those typically give off incredibly bright X-rays. But could the answer really be so simple? Something didn't add up. Now, gamma-ray bursts are the most powerful explosions in the universe, and they can happen in unusual ways. Long-duration gamma-ray bursts are caused by the demise of massive stars that spin incredibly quickly. When these stars run out of fuel, their cores collapse under gravity, forming an extremely dense object like a black hole. At the same time, the outer layers of the star are blown away in a massive explosion called a supernova. Gamma ray bursts are followed by jets. Those are twin beams of material shooting out from opposite sides of the collapsing object. They're super fast, moving at nearly the speed of light. These jets appear brighter if they're pointed directly at us. It's like how a flashlight beam is brightest when it's aimed straight at you rather than at an angle. Now back to our unusual cosmic explosion. Remember me telling you something wasn't adding up? Hey, it was just 45 seconds ago. Well, the problem was that when multiple telescopes observed this event in different wavelengths – ultraviolet, optical, near-infrared, radio, X-rays, gamma rays, you name it – it didn't match any known type of event. The most likely explanation, according to current research, is that this explosion is the result of a white dwarf star being torn apart by a medium-sized black hole. And still, it's not so simple. Now, black holes are areas in space where gravity is so strong that nothing, not even light, can escape. That's why they're called black holes. It's believed that stars with at least 3 times the mass of our Sun can collapse under their own gravity once they run out of their stellar fuel. When a star has so much mass packed into such a small space, its gravity becomes so powerful that it forces everything, including atoms, to squish together. This intense density leads to the formation of a black hole. So, when a white dwarf star is torn apart by a medium-sized black hole, it results in a high-speed jet of material that can be aimed directly at Earth. So, could this space disaster be the reason behind our mysterious event? Unfortunately, even though it ticks some boxes for several types of phenomena, including the one involving a white dwarf, it still doesn't fit all the criteria for any of them. The event's short duration and high luminosity are hard to explain using any scenarios we can produce. So, does it mean we have come across something completely new? The universe is full of energetic flashes caused by outbursts from stars and black holes, supernova explosions, stars being eaten by black holes, and other cosmic events. Astronomers usually figure out what these events are by analyzing their duration, frequency, source, and the specific combination of wavelengths they emit. Here, I just have to say a few words about the instrument that discovered the space anomaly. The Einstein probe is an X-ray space telescope project led by the Chinese Academy of Science in collaboration with the European Space Agency and the Max Planck Institute for Extraterrestrial Physics. That's a mouthful. This project is all about studying high-energy space events over time. Its main goal is to find inactive black holes and figure out how matter falls into them by spotting X-ray flares produced by these sudden space events. The Einstein probe also hopes to catch the electromagnetic signals from events that cause gravitational waves, like when neutron stars merge. It also keeps an eye on the whole sky to spot all kinds of space explosions and track already known changing X-ray sources. After the Einstein probe detected that ultra-bright space flash, the event was also observed by a few other ground-based and space telescopes, including the Nuclear Spectroscopic Telescope Array, SWIFT, Gemini, Keck, Dark Energy Camera, Very Large Array, Australia Telescope Compact Array, and Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer. That's a bigger mouthful. Using all this data, astronomers pieced together the event's characteristics, but it didn't make the case any clearer. Quite the opposite. It just deepened the mystery. This event flared up in soft X-rays for the first 10 seconds, then plateaued at a steady glow for about 4 days before fading quickly within another day. This is much longer than typical gamma ray bursts, which usually last from a few milliseconds to several hours. But it was still not long enough to fit into other known categories. The event's brightness in X-rays was also unusual. It was too bright for some types of phenomenon, but not bright enough for others. The most puzzling part is that the Very Large Array didn't detect any radio emission from the source when it was observed 11 days, 158 days, and 258 days after the initial flare. Now normally, when something this bright in X-rays lasts for this long, it's usually associated with a luminous radio counterpart. But in this case, no radio signals were detected, which is very strange and adds to the mystery. Astronomers didn't give up and considered several other possibilities, like fast blue optical transients. Those are a new class of explosions that release huge amounts of energy and blast matter into space at incredibly high speeds. These bursts are so powerful that one F-bot can be at least 10 times more powerful than a regular supernova. Fast blue optical transients do look like supernova explosions, but they are much faster. They flare up and fade away much more quickly than regular supernova. They're also much hotter, which makes the light seem bluer compared to other supernova. Since these explosions happen so quickly, it's tough to figure out what causes them. In January 2019, astronomers narrowed it down to two causes: a black hole consuming a white dwarf star, or a rare kind of supernova that leads to the formation of a neutron star or a black hole. Now, another explanation for our mysterious space explosion, and astronomers think it's the most likely one, is a tidal disruption event. It happens when a black hole swallows a star, causing a flash of light. When a star gets too close to a supermassive black hole, it doesn't get off easily. No, the black hole's powerful tidal forces tear the star apart, breaking it into pieces and pulling it toward the black hole. Its remains turn into a stream of debris that falls toward the black hole's accretion disk. However, before the debris settles into the disk, it overshoots the black hole in an elliptical path, only to be pulled back in. At one point in this path, the debris collides violently with other parts of the star being pulled in, and that's when we start to see the first bursts of emissions. In some rare cases, tidal disruption events create huge jets of material that shoot out from the black hole's poles. If these jets happen to point directly at Earth, we can see the signature of the event. It often looks like an intermediate mass black hole eating a white dwarf star. However, there should still be some radio emissions coming from the jet of a tidal disruption event. The reason none have been detected yet might be that the event was likely observed too early. Previous studies suggest that it can take hundreds or even thousands of days for the jet material to slow down enough to start sending out radio signals. If future observations pick up radio emissions, it could help solve the mystery. But if there are no signals, it might mean it's a very unusual gamma ray burst or something completely new that we haven't seen before.
Venus is often called Earth's evil twin. The thing is, this world once started off quite similar to our home planet. But later, something went wrong. These days, the two planets are relatively close and similar in size. But Venus's atmosphere is very different from that on our planet, all thanks to a runaway greenhouse effect that has been going on for a long time. The surface of Venus can get even hotter than the surface of Mercury, 864 degrees F. And the surface pressure feels as if you're more than half a mile underwater. The thick atmosphere presents its own challenges. Its clouds consist of sulfuric acid, which is used in lead-acid batteries, as well as industrial cleaners. And if you decided to land on the planet, you'd have to survive atmospheric entry, with friction heating you up to 20,000 degrees F. Still, people have always wanted to explore this inhospitable world. And we can't but talk about the Venera program. During the 1970s and 1980s, several spacecraft studied Venus from orbit and from its hostile surface for an hour or so at a time. The 10 successful Venera landers provided us with most of the data we have today about the surface of this mysterious planet, including surface composition, direct measurements of atmospheric conditions, and sets of unique images. At the same time, astronomers got their hands on these treasures only after a series of annoying failures. They started with Venera 1, launched in February 1961. Each consequent spacecraft was somehow improved and upgraded. But it still wasn't until the fifth group of Venus-bound space probes launched in 1967 that one of them, Venera 4, reached its target and sent data from Venus. Before that, Venera 2 and 3, launched in November 1965, were supposed to land on Venus, but both of them failed in transit. 11-foot-tall Venera 4 was a hefty thing. Its bottom lander was a bunch of instruments and a battery wrapped up in a pressure shell equipped with a parachute. This probe reached Venus in October 1967 and successfully launched the lander. The mother spaceship sent the probe flying over the planet, and it entered Venus's atmosphere. Temperatures were reaching 20,000 degrees F, and the entry force was as great as 450 G. It didn't prevent the onboard instruments from analyzing the atmosphere and sending back data. The first recorded temperature was 102 degrees F, and atmospheric pressure was similar to that on Earth. But the deeper the probe went, the higher the numbers became. 10 atmospheres, 20. They kept going up much higher than engineers had anticipated. 93 minutes into the mission, when the probe was still more than 16 miles above the surface of the planet, Venera 4 cracked open near its top and crashed. At the crash point, the measurements showed 22 atmospheres and 530 degrees F. Scientists realized that they needed a bigger spaceship. After some intense engineering, Venera 5 and Venera 6 saw the light of the day. Engineers did everything they could to make the landing probe stronger, but they were pressed for time. That's why Venera 5 and 6 were not fully prepared when they went on a mission. That's why Venera 5 transmitted data for a mere 53 minutes before succumbing to temperatures of 600 degrees F and pressures of 27 atmospheres. And Venera 6 lasted for 51 minutes. In any case now, the leaders of the project knew what it would take. 840 degrees F, 100 atmospheres, corrosive acids. They seemed to be prepared. They found new materials to build the probe. They got a hotter and stronger test chamber for the trials. They modified the parachute to make the lander fall faster so that the probe could spend as much time on the surface as possible. The lander was also designed in the shape of an egg and made of titanium, so its surface was smooth and had just a few ports, welds, and substructures. The insides were lined with a shock absorber and insulation layer. The chamber was also to pre-chill to freezing temperatures before entry. And Venera 7 was finally a success. It reached the planet in December 1970, separated from the mothership, and went down into the atmosphere. The probe transmitted data for 35 minutes, and things seemed smooth. But then, its chute melted, and the probe dropped like a rock, hitting the ground at 35 miles per hour and bouncing. Then, a second after the landing, the signal was abruptly cut. It looked like the probe crashed to bits. Shockingly, a few months later, while looking through all the data they managed to get, engineers rediscovered the signal. It was super weak and lost amidst the noise. Apparently, when Venera 7 bounced, it misaligned the antenna. The probe rested on its side, which weakened the signal to 1 or 3% of its initial strength. The probe kept transmitting data for 23 minutes. After that, the temperatures got too high and melted its shell. Venera 8, launched in 1972, had a similar design and experienced a similar fate. Venera 9 and 10 were a new generation of probes. They could send back black and white photos. It was actually the probe's main goal, to send the first ever photographic panorama from another planet. Venera 9 and 10 were 5 times heavier than their predecessors and weighed 5 tons at launch. The lander was 6.5 feet tall. It was basically a hermetically sealed titanium sphere that was supposed to hold the instruments. It was bolted with gold wire seals. Inside, there were shelves of beryllium and electric fans, whose main goal was to disperse heat to prevent instrument failure. On the bottom of the lander, there was a shock-absorbing ring. And at the top, there was a titanium ring that looked like a hat. It served as an aero brake. The parachute was supposed to detach at 30 miles above the surface, and the aero brake had to do the rest. In October 1975, Venera 9 and 10 arrived at Venus and landed as planned. Venera 9 was the first to land. It touched down on a slight slope, a volcanic crater or a hill, and kicked quite a bit of dust while landing. One of its 2 cameras succeeded in photographing and transmitting data, and soon scientists saw the first ever pictures of the surface of Venus. It was mostly sharp rocks, soil, and a distant horizon. The sun was slightly obscured by clouds that day. A gentle breeze was blowing. Overall, it was a pleasant morning. If you didn't pay attention to crushing pressure, almost completely waterless atmosphere, insanely high temperatures, and corrosive acids. Venera 10 landed in the same way a few days later, but the terrain it landed on was much more boring. Just a rolling plain with hardened pieces of magma. Both probes transmitted for 40 to 60 minutes until their orbiters went out of range. When it happened, the temperatures inside the probes were reaching 140 degrees F. The orbiters later burned up in the atmosphere after completing their mission. Venera 11 and 12 could have been a success, but a mysterious electric anomaly messed up with their cameras, so their trip was quickly forgotten. And Venera 13 and 14 entered the picture. They had improved scientific instruments and cameras that could take color images, and new heat-resistant technologies were used during the creation of these probes. Venera 13 arrived first and landed as planned. It took 2 photos, one black and white and the other in color. In the photos, one could see a surface of pebbled, loose soil and outcroppings of bedrock. It all looked pretty similar to the surface of the ocean. In the distance, there were rolling plateaus and an orange sky. The images taken later by Venera 14 showed a more weathered plain with less loose soil and fine-grained rocks. The 2 probes also sent back what they heard. It mostly sounded like a gently blowing wind with hints of distant rumbling. Could be Venus quakes. Venera 13 and 14 were the last landers to touch the surface of the planet. Venera 15 and 16 just flew around Venus, mapping its topography from orbit.
Hundreds of millions of rocks orbit the Sun within the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, but only some of them come relatively close to Earth. NASA classifies asteroids orbiting within 30 million miles of our planet as near-Earth objects, and inside this group, there are particularly worrisome objects. Those are so large and orbit so closely to our home planet that they could turn into a real threat to the world should a direct collision occur. At the moment, NASA is keeping a close eye on an asteroid named Bennu. It's a fairly large space object that might smash into our planet in 159 years. According to the experts, the asteroid, which was first spotted in 1999, is quite likely to drift into the orbit of our planet. If it happens, it might collide with Earth by the 24th of September, 2182. Asteroid Bennu is thought to be taller than the Empire State Building. If that hits our planet, the collision will release 1,200 megatons of energy. That's an enormous amount of energy that nothing built on Earth could produce. Scientists from NASA believe that during the flyby in the 22nd century, there's a tiny chance that the asteroid will pass through a gravitational keyhole. That's a region of space that might set the space traveler on a certain path, which could result in the asteroid crashing into Earth. Bennu flies by our planet every 6 years. It has had 3 close encounters with Earth, in 1999, 2005, and 2011. These days, scientists estimate the chance of the asteroid hitting our planet by 2182 as 1 in 2,700. That's more than 5 times a person's chance of being struck by lightning. But even though Bennu's chance of colliding with Earth are quite low at the moment, the space rock has still been categorized as a, quote, potentially hazardous asteroid. All because it might come as close as 4.65 million miles from Earth. That's the reason why it's also classified as a near-Earth object. Bennu is a carbon-rich asteroid that was formed in the first 10 million years of the history of the solar system. That's around 4.5 billion years ago. No wonder this space body holds precious clues to the origin and development of the rocky planets of our solar system, which are, as you recall, Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. Even better, it may contain organic molecules, similar to those that are crucial for life to evolve. In 2020, NASA's Osiris-Rex managed to briefly touch the surface of the asteroid. It collected some samples and propelled off the space rock afterward. For NASA, it was the first mission of this kind. But it won't probably come as a surprise that Bennu isn't the only asteroid we should worry about. Asteroid 99942, Apophis, is another space body we'd better watch out for. It's a near-Earth object about 1,100 feet across. It was discovered in 2004, and at first, it was identified as one of the most dangerous asteroids ever detected. Apophis gained notoriety very fast. It was believed to pose a serious threat to Earth. Experts predicted that it would come uncomfortably close to our planet in 2029. Luckily, after a more careful examination of Apophis and its orbit, astronomers concluded that there was no risk of the asteroid colliding with our planet for at least a century. The risk of an impact in 2029 was ruled out completely, as well as the potential impact that could be caused by the asteroid's close approach in 2036. Interestingly, until March 2021, there was a small chance of a collision in 2068. But then, Apophis made a flyby of Earth, and astronomers took this chance to use powerful radars to estimate the asteroid's orbit around the Sun more precisely. This allowed them to rule out any impact risk for at least the next 100 years. Now, the reason why such discoveries make us so worried is that even a relatively small asteroid, the size of a house, can wreak havoc upon colliding with our planet. And if an asteroid is larger than 0.6 miles across, astronomers call it a planet destroyer. The impact energy released by such an asteroid after striking Earth could be devastating. That's why knowing where such asteroids are and in what direction they're moving is crucial. The problem is that our capability to protect the planet from asteroid impacts is not top-notch yet. If such a catastrophe was about to occur, we would need some time to prepare, because an asteroid collision is no joke. Probably the most well-known asteroid impact site is the Chicxulub crater. It's the evidence of the terrifying collision that led to the extinction of dinosaurs. Strangely, this crater isn't very visible, but some others are. For example, Barringer Crater in Arizona, which is also called Meteor Crater. It looks rather blood-chilling when you think about the collision that led to its appearance. In any case, we now know that space rocks hit not only the Earth but also the Moon, Mercury, and Mars. No rocky planet in the solar system is safe from asteroid impacts. That's why we have an entire scientific enterprise whose goal is to find and catalog the asteroid population of the solar system. Now, it might sound a bit scary, but there are around 25,000 asteroids larger than 460 feet in diameter near the orbit of our planet. Such a space rock is large enough to wipe an entire city off the face of the Earth. So far, less than 50% of such asteroids have been detected and tracked. There are also an estimated 230,000 objects equal to or larger than 160 feet in size. Those are capable of destroying a concentrated urban area, and still, fewer than 8% of those have been detected. There are also tens of millions of smaller near-Earth objects. They are larger than 33 feet across and might cause some surface damage. Less than 1% of such small space bodies have been discovered so far. Now, the thing is, the inner solar system is extremely challenging for asteroid search. Each night, there are only 2 10-minute windows when astronomers can observe the region, all because the sun's glare creates a very bright background glow. Plus, the atmosphere of our planet also distorts and blurs observations. Spotting asteroids in such conditions is beyond the capabilities of most telescopes. A unique instrument is needed to fulfill this task, and the tool of choice is the Dark Energy Camera at Cerro Tololo Inter-American Observatory in Chile. This device wasn't designed to hunt asteroids. Researchers built it to search for another elusive target, dark energy, the mysterious force driving the expansion of the universe. The DEC is supposed to observe hundreds of millions of galaxies. That's why it's both wide and deep. This way, it can both peer deep into the universe and capture a wide field of view, which helps it record the motions of galaxies and the conditions in the early age of the universe. But it also means that the DEC is perfectly suited to spotting asteroids near the Sun. Inner asteroids are rare, and deep images are necessary because such asteroids are faint. Scientists need to be able to fight both the bright twilight sky near our star and the distorting effect of Earth's atmosphere, and the DEC can help them achieve their goal. The Dark Energy Camera was built to carry out the Dark Energy Survey, which finished in 2019. Now astronomers can direct the power of the camera towards other tasks. They claim that the DEC's survey is one of the most sensitive searches ever performed for objects near Venus's orbit and within the orbit of our planet. It provides us a great chance to find out what kinds of objects are lurking in the inner solar system. So, how do you feel about cooking? Nah, pasta and burgers are overrated. How about something more exotic, or rather, more cosmic? So, the recipe is simple. Take a team of enthusiastic astronomers and add some old images from the James Webb Space Telescope. Stir really well, and you'll get a shocking number of tiny asteroids in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Yummy! The highlight of this dish is the direction in which some of the asteroids are moving, because in their way, there's our poor planet. Are we doomed just because you decided to cook? Now, the asteroids I'm talking about are much smaller than the massive space rock that wiped out the dinosaurs, but they can still cause considerable damage. They range in size from as small as a bus to as big as a stadium. But even those small ones pack quite a punch. Let's look at a recent dramatic example. It happened on February 15, 2013. A small asteroid just tens of feet wide exploded in an airburst over Chelyabinsk in Siberia, releasing an insane amount of energy. Many people witnessed and recorded the event, and it gave scientists vital clues. New computer models helped scientists reconstruct the size, speed, and impact of the Chelyabinsk meteor. It was likely an asteroid, about the size of a 5-story building, exploding from 15 to 18 miles above Earth's surface with an enormous, incomparable force. The blast shattered 1 million windows and hurt over 1,000 people. Fortunately, it wasn't powerful enough to cause too much damage, but it gave us an idea about how dangerous an airburst can be. Now, an airburst occurs when an object explodes high in the atmosphere, never striking the ground, but releasing enough energy to devastate the area. But back to the small asteroids. The most dangerous thing about them is that they hit the Earth far more often than the larger ones, about 10,000 times more frequently. To make matters worse, their small size makes them harder to detect in advance, leaving little time for preparation if one is heading towards Earth. Now, let's travel back in time. Uh-oh, dinosaurs, too far back. Ah, there we go. A team of astronomers is working on a special method to find small asteroids in telescope images that were originally taken to study distant stars. Using this method, they've looked through thousands of JWST images of a star system called TRAPPIST-1. It's located 40 light-years away and is one of the most studied systems outside our solar system. Now, while analyzing these images, they discovered 138 new asteroids in the main asteroid belt, plus 8 they already knew about. And guess what? Among the newly found asteroids, 6 seem to have been pushed into paths that could bring them closer to Earth. Who did it? Well, probably nearby planets. Are they holding a grudge against Earth? Interestingly, scientists thought they'd find just a few new asteroids, but the number was much higher than they expected. Yet, it's no wonder. Right now, they're exploring a part of space they didn't know much about before. Now, let's talk about the hero of the day, the James Webb Space Telescope. It's especially good at finding small asteroids because it can detect their heat. These asteroids give off infrared radiation, which is much easier to see than the faint sunlight that reflects off their surfaces. This technology allowed scientists to spot the smallest asteroids ever seen in the main asteroid belt. The asteroids they found are pieces left over from collisions between bigger space rocks. Finding them helps astronomers understand the history of the asteroid belt and improve methods for tracking small asteroids that could threaten Earth. The researchers are planning to use James Webb to observe other star systems for at least 500 hours. They expect this work to uncover thousands more small asteroids in the solar system. Other advanced telescopes, like the Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile, will also help. Starting in 2025, this observatory will use the world's largest digital camera to photograph the southern sky every night for at least 10 years. Each image will cover a huge area of the sky, about 40 times the size of the full moon. The observatory might find up to 2.5 million asteroids in just 6 months, almost doubling the number we know about. Recently, NASA has identified 2 small asteroids. They were supposed to pass near Earth on December 16, 2024. Luckily, neither posed any danger to our planet. The first asteroid was 71 feet wide, about the size of a large airplane, and was traveling at 10,800 miles per hour. The second asteroid was slightly smaller, 56 feet wide, but it traveled faster at 14,700 miles per hour. But hey, even though this time the danger is past, who knows what the future will bring? It may sound weird these days, but astronomers didn't really care much about small asteroids for a rather long time. They thought of them as just random space debris that got in the way of observing stars. Some even called them sky parasites. But now, the way we see these little space rocks has completely changed. You see, until recently, we could only spot really big asteroids, those over a mile wide. The smaller ones just blended into the background noise in telescope images. But then, a clever trick appeared where multiple images of the same part of the sky were combined, making those faint small objects finally stand out. The data from certain telescopes, along with the James Webb Space Telescope, helps us improve planetary defense. But there's more to it than just protecting our planet. Studying these small asteroids also teaches us about how the solar system evolved. There are so many of them because they're fragments from collisions between bigger space rocks. One researcher has said this is like looking at old data in a new way. These small asteroids, which people used to think of as space junk, are crucial for understanding our solar system and even preparing for whatever the future holds. Among those hundreds of millions of rocks orbiting the Sun in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, some are especially worrisome. They come close enough to Earth for it to be quite concerning. NASA classifies asteroids that orbit within 30 million miles of our planet as near-Earth objects, and those could pose a serious threat if they were to collide with our planet. Right now, NASA is closely monitoring an asteroid named Bennu. This is a fairly large space rock, measuring about 1,600 feet across. It could, potentially, crash into Earth in 159 years. First, the astronauts spotted it in 1999. So currently, experts believe that there's a small chance Bennu could drift into Earth's orbit and collide with our planet by September 24, 2182. Would it be bad? Well, to put it in perspective, Bennu is taller than the Empire State Building. If it hit Earth, it would generate 1,200 megatons of energy, an amount so massive that nothing on Earth could generate that. NASA scientists are particularly concerned about a tiny chance that Bennu could pass through a gravitational keyhole during a flyby in the 22nd century. This keyhole is a region in space that could set the asteroid on a path that brings it directly to Earth. Now, Bennu flies by Earth every 6 years and has had 3 close encounters with us in 1999, 2005, and 2011. Right now, scientists estimate that the chance of Bennu hitting Earth by 2182 is about 1 in 2,700, more than 5 times greater than the chance of being struck by lightning. Although the chances of Bennu colliding with Earth are very low right now, this space rock is still classified as a potentially hazardous asteroid because it might come as close as 4.65 million miles to Earth. Now, this asteroid is another space rock that we need to keep an eye on. It's a near-Earth object about 1,100 feet across, and it was discovered in 2004. Initially, it was considered one of the most dangerous asteroids ever detected. Apophis quickly gained attention because experts believed it could pose a serious threat to Earth because of its close approach to our planet in 2029. However, after further study of its orbit, astronomers determined that there was no risk of a collision for at least a century. Well, we can all breathe easier now, can't we? So, theoretically, humans can survive an asteroid that has the potential to destroy entire planets. It won't be a walk in the park, though. Let's go back in time to 66 million years ago, in the late Cretaceous period. The Earth, before humans, where dinosaurs are thriving. The plants and animals are rich and diverse. You'd see a T-Rex chasing a Triceratops, or the massive Alamosaurus, one of the biggest animals to ever roam the planet, towering over the landscape. In Texas, they remember the Alamosaurus. And watch out for the Ankylosaurus, a living tank swinging its tail like a wrecking ball at any threat. As you're about to enjoy a quiet evening under the stars, a bright new light appears in the sky of the northern hemisphere. Now, a new star in the sky doesn't really stand out at first. It's just twinkling like the rest. But give it a few hours and you'll notice it's getting brighter. Check again the next night and boom, it's the brightest thing in the sky, outshining planets and even the moon. Then finally, it horrifyingly outshines the sun. The star was the Chicxulub asteroid, which left a gigantic crater now called Chicxulub Crater in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. The asteroid enters the Earth's atmosphere at a blistering 12.5 miles per second. It blasts through 60 miles of the atmosphere in about 3 seconds. It falls so fast that even the air can't get out of its way. The air gets squashed and heats up to thousands of degrees in a blink. Before the asteroid even touches the ground, this super hot air has already vaporized much of the sea where it's about to strike, near the Yucatan Peninsula. Then, in a flash, the asteroid smashes into the Earth, screaming over Central America with a loud boom that echoes everywhere. It doesn't just smash the ground, it makes the soil and rock flow like liquid. The asteroid digs a hole so wide and deep that it nearly touches Earth's inner layers and throws up dirt more than 20 miles high. At that exact moment of impact, the asteroid also turns its massive speed and weight into heat in a split second. It puts so much energy into the Earth that it makes molecules move faster than the surface of the Sun. This massive energy created a giant ball of plasma, superhot charged gas that includes bits of vaporized rock. This all shot out at incredible speeds. The shockwave from the impact and the heat turned the Earth around the crash site into gas instantly. This set off earthquakes all around the world. And it's not just the rocks flying around that you need to worry about. As they plummet through the sky, they rub against the air, heating up so much that they set fires all around the world. The heat they give off could be compared to an oven cranked up to its highest setting. This fiery shower causes most of the world's trees to burn down. The entire world is now on fire. Soon it changes everything. In a blink, dinosaurs were wiped out, making way for mammals to rise. And not only dinosaurs, 75% of species and big creatures disappeared, leaving behind only some small birds and critters. So, how could you, a human, survive something like that? Now, some animals made it back then. To survive, we need to learn from their resilience. The only birds that survive even in the toughest conditions are the ones nesting safely on the ground. Among the few larger animals that manage to dodge extinction, all have ways to deal with the heat. Some, like certain small mammals, snakes, and lizards, can dig themselves into cooler underground burrows. Others, like crocodiles and turtles, just hide in the water. So, if you're exactly on the other side of the planet when the strike happens, and you act super fast, you might just make it. Right now, the impact is about 10,000 miles away, but don't underestimate its power. As soon as you hear the loud boom, head underground as quickly as you can. And be careful, because you'll feel the Earth shake about 30 minutes later. Hide in a deep cave, preferably with a narrow entrance. It would protect you from the falling debris, and the temperatures underground would be stable. Also, some caves have natural water sources, rivers or streams. You might also prepare for the not-so-great diet of insects, fungi, or poor small animals that also seek refuge in the cave system. But it's better than nothing. You also need to be extremely far away from any large bodies of water. Being near the ocean might seem like a safe bet during a massive asteroid impact because the sea can buffer extreme temperature changes. But the earthquakes trigger terrifying tsunamis, even in lakes or fjords. The asteroid's crash sets off not just one tsunami, but many, and they're as tall as skyscrapers. Within an hour, colossal waves between 600 and 1,000 feet high hit the Gulf Coast. slamming into places like Mexico and the southern United States, and flooding miles inland. These waves are so powerful, they even push rivers backward. These tsunamis continue around coastlines, reaching the east coast of the United States, and 6 hours later, they hit Europe, Africa, and the Mediterranean. By 15 hours after the impact, there isn't a coastline on Earth that hasn't felt the wrath of these waves. Well, let's say you survived the initial impact somewhere deep underground, but your troubles have only begun. The Chicxulub asteroid strikes a region loaded with sulfur. This sends 100 billion tons of sulfur and an enormous amount of water into the sky. The water vapor forms massive storm clouds. They start to rain acid. In colder places, huge snowstorms bury the land under feet of snow each day. The impact also vaporizes massive amounts of oil, throwing up 150 football stadiums worth of it into the air. This oil turns into a thick black soot in the stratosphere. It coats the Earth like black paint. And even when the acid rain calms down, this carbon stays up above the clouds and doesn't wash away. This sooty layer blocks out 90% of sunlight, plunging the Earth into a cold darkness that lasts for at least 3 years. The world cools down by about 50 degrees on average. Now, when you finally leave your deep cave, you must look for places where you won't freeze. The only spots spared from the frost are tropical islands like Madagascar, India, which was an island back then, and Indonesia. These places have surviving plants and animals, and they even continue to get fresh water, unlike most of the world. Everything else in the world looks like a huge nuclear wasteland. These tropical islands are safe spots during an asteroid apocalypse, but don't think of them as paradise. These places still only get about 10% of their usual sunlight and barely enough rain to avoid turning into deserts. In this chilly, gloomy setting, most food chains fall apart. If you want to survive, you'll need to bring lots of extra food with you, for the next 6 years at least. Now, some things are lucky enough to survive. Fossils tell us that freshwater ecosystems did well, so staying close to a river or estuary might be your best shot at finding food. You could come across turtles, crocodiles, and some fish. Animals like clams, snails, and small crustaceans that live in the sediment also manage to hang on. And while a bit warmer than everything else, these places are no walk in the park. You'd need to pack warm clothes to have any chance of survival. Now, if we add all this together, the best spot for surviving the Chicxulub asteroid would be Indonesia. It's a mountainous, tropical country that consists of several islands. There, you'll find bearable temperatures, a bit of rainwater, and a deep cave for shelter. This could protect you from the falling tektites, the intense heat, and even help you find something to eat in the rivers and lakes. But if you stumble upon any shrew-like creatures while scavenging for food, time traveler, please let them be. It's not clear how many survived the Chicxulub impact, and eating one could have unforeseen effects on the future of humanity. Like, don't eat your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, right? Asteroids are a serious, very real danger. Some of them are big enough to cause a lot of trouble if they collide with Earth. One asteroid in particular is making headlines these days. A new study has revealed there's a small chance it could hit our planet during its close flyby in 2029. But the question is unusual. Will the asteroid survive this encounter? Apophis, which got its name from Apep, the Egyptian deity of chaos and disorder, has become one of the most infamous asteroids. Discovered in 2004, this space object is about 1,100 feet wide. It's about the height of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Because of its size and the close flyby predicted for 2029, astronomers classify Apophis as a potentially hazardous object. Those are asteroids and other space objects that pass close to Earth and are big enough that we really need to pay attention to them. Right now, scientists say the chances of a collision are slim, less than 1 in a billion. So, at the moment, we can probably claim that Earth is out of danger. But the same can't be said about the asteroid itself. When Apophis passes close to Earth in 2029, our planet's gravity is likely to shake it so violently that it may experience something like an earthquake, a cosmic asteroid quake, if you will. The stress from this gravitational force will probably cause parts of the asteroid's surface to crack off and fly into space. And even though this might not be a full-blown disaster, and the asteroid won't fall apart completely, it's very likely to lose some material during the flyby. Some of this debris might just stick around in orbit, while other bits could fly off into deep space. Over time, this catastrophe could affect Apophis's rotation, causing it to spin differently or tilt in a way it hasn't before. And this is a phenomenon scientists are really interested in, because it could teach us a lot about how asteroids react when powerful gravity is pulling on them. Now, let's get back to Earth. Well, we haven't left. Anyway, even though the asteroid isn't big enough to wipe out the planet like the asteroid that destroyed the dinosaurs, it's large enough to cause serious damage to a large city if it ever collided with Earth. It could mess with the climate all over the planet, too. At the moment, it looks like the space rock will sail past Earth at a distance of around 20,000 miles. It's still worryingly close, but far enough to avoid a collision. To put it in perspective, that's less than a tenth of the distance between Earth and the Moon. So while Apophis likely won't hit us, this flyby could still cause problems for some of the satellites orbiting Earth. They will be much closer to Apophis than we are. The key point is that we can't rule out a risk of a collision in a few more years. As Apophis gets closer, astronomers will keep a very close eye on its trajectory to make sure it doesn't veer off course due to the influence of Earth's gravity. In fact, this gravitational pull could actually cause some serious changes to the asteroid itself. Now, even though Apophis is not likely to cause a global disaster if it were to hit Earth, the consequences would still be pretty severe. The impact could destroy an entire city, and the resulting climate changes could mess with food production for years. It wouldn't be an extinction-level event, but it would still be a huge deal. Now, Apophis is not the only asteroid we need to worry about. Scientists are constantly on the lookout for other asteroids that could potentially cause harm to our planet. Thanks to new technology, astronomers can now track dangerous space rocks from way farther out in space. One cool new method they're using involves studying meteor showers. These showers are actually caused by long-period comets that have been orbiting the Sun for hundreds or even thousands of years. As these comets pass by, they leave a trail of dust and debris, which can end up creating meteor showers when Earth passes through them. Scientists analyze the properties of meteor showers, like their speed, direction, and where they come from. This can help them trace the particles back to their parent comet or asteroid. It's actually a big deal, because it means we might be able to spot potentially hazardous asteroids long before they get close to Earth. The upcoming Legacy Survey of Space and Time project, which is being run out of the Vera Rubin Observatory in Chile, is going to help astronomers track these space rocks from even farther away. Astronomers are going to create a detailed map of the sky and the regions where meteor showers are most likely to occur. It'll help them predict which asteroids might become a problem for Earth in the future, giving us plenty of time to prepare or come up with a plan. But even now, there are many space rocks that can potentially cause a lot of trouble to our planet. Let's look at some of them. Here's the asteroid Bennu. Astronomers discovered it in 1999. This carbon-rich rock is about 1,600 feet across. It's the height of the Shanghai World Financial Center. Didn't you know that? At the moment, this asteroid is the greatest threat to Earth that we're aware of. But don't panic yet. The collision won't happen for a long time. In fact, scientists calculate a 0.037% chance, which is about 1 in 2,700, of Bennu striking Earth on September 24, 2182. I won't be around then. If Bennu does hit our planet, the impact would release so much energy that it would be enough to cause massive destruction in a large region. But luckily, it wouldn't wipe out the entire planet. Still, if Bennu hit a city, the consequences could be catastrophic. NASA's Osiris-Rex spacecraft has recently visited Bennu and returned with samples, so scientists are learning more about this asteroid all the time. The next asteroid is another one to keep an eye on. It was first discovered in 1950, but wasn't seen again until 2000. Right now, scientists say there's a very slim chance, 1 in 34,500, that it could hit Earth on March 16, 2880, 800 years into the future. So, am I worried? Nah. If it did strike, it would release so much energy it could lead to a global catastrophe, potentially wiping out humanity. Or not. Our next asteroid has been discovered only recently. It was spotted in October 2023. It has a very low chance of striking Earth on October 10, 2119. Man, they got it down to the day? Now, if it were to collide with our planet, the impact would release a lot of energy, which would have a devastating effect for large areas. So, while the arrival of this asteroid is a long shot, this asteroid is still worth keeping an eye on. Now, this asteroid is known as a lost asteroid because it hasn't been seen since 2007. No wonder, it has a very uncertain orbit, and we can't predict its movements. NASA says there's a tiny chance, about 1 in 10 million, that it could strike Earth on March 3, 2030. If it did, the energy released would be able to cause huge regional damage. Finally, we've got this space wanderer. On the one hand, it hasn't been seen since 1979. On the other, scientists believe that there's a very low chance that it could hit Earth on December 14, 2113. Mark your calendars. If it did, the impact would cause a lot of damage and devastation, but it would not lead to the end of humanity. Now, in any case, even though the chances of an asteroid hitting Earth are low, the consequences of such an event could be huge. That's why scientists are so focused on studying these space rocks and tracking their movements. Thanks to new technologies, we can track dangerous objects from farther away and catch them earlier. It can give us more time to react and come up with some effective solutions. If an asteroid like Apophis hits Earth, we will be destroyed. Massive earthquakes will strike, and tsunamis will flood everything. Apophis is a billion-year-old celestial body that has been in the solar system since its inception. So you might be thinking, well, how likely is it that this giant space stone will collide with our planet in 2029? Well, let's find out, shall we? Apophis is a big, bad asteroid discovered in 2004 by the Kitt Peak National Observatory in Arizona. Since then, it has proudly held the title of one of the most dangerous asteroids ever located. It's around 1,100 feet wide, which is a bit bigger than the Empire State Building and the Eiffel Tower. Because of how scary it is, it was named Apophis, like the Egyptian immortal creature that was considered to bring eternal darkness and destruction to Earth. Oh boy. In 2021, researchers had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to study this floating rock when it passed near our planet, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Now, some scientists say that there is a small chance of Apophis hitting the Earth on Friday, April 13, 2029. The Yarkovsky effect is to blame for this, since it can slightly nudge this space rock towards Earth. This effect originates from the uneven emission of thermal photons from a rotating celestial object, resulting in a fascinating force exerted upon it in space. These emitted photons possess momentum and play a pivotal role in shaping the dynamics of the body. The asteroid has two sides, light and dark, just like the Moon. The light side faces the Sun and is warmer than the dark side. But the thing also turns, so the sides constantly change direction and temperature. This change could be detrimental because it slightly pushes Apophis toward Earth. Unfortunately, nobody knows how the Yarkovsky effect will influence the asteroid's path. On the other hand, on the asteroid's last flyby of Earth in 2021, astronomers used radar to take accurate measurements of its trajectory and confidently concluded Apophis will safely miss Earth in 2029 by about 20,000 miles and won't bother us again for at least 100 years. Now, generally speaking, every 8,000 years, our planet is hit by a falling star that has similar dimensions to those of Apophis. The last time we were hit by a slightly smaller meteor was in 2013. A new spacecraft developed by NASA called the Osiris-Rex was launched in 2016 to collect samples from another slightly less terrifying celestial body called Bennu. 4 years later, it finally arrived at the thing, got some samples, quickly said goodbye to Bennu, and started traveling back towards Earth. The samples were safely stored in a capsule dropped in Utah. So far, this has been the most significant sample ever taken from an asteroid. After the delivery, The spacecraft didn't waste any time and started chasing Apophis. Now, OSIRIS-REx has been renamed to Osiris-Apex, and is currently playing tag with Apophis. With some luck, on the 2nd of April 2029, when the asteroid zips close by Earth, the spacecraft will reach Apophis and land on it. It will stay on Apophis for 18 months, collecting valuable information and taking thousands of pictures. The asteroid will be monitored with the help of powerful telescopes. At some point, Apophis will get too close to the Sun, and then all the monitoring work will be on Osiris's apex back. If you live in Europe, West Asia, or Africa, you're one of those lucky people who will have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see Apophis with the unaided eye. It'll be visible in the sky in these regions in 2029, and those who have telescopes will be able to spot it once again in 2036. Osiris-Apex will experience some problems because the asteroid has a thick crust, and the spacecraft won't be able to collect data as easily as it did with Bennu. Osiris-Apex has a unique thruster that will blow all the dust from Apophis while landing. This will be a perfect chance to analyze the surface of the asteroid to see what it's made of. The craft will spend 1.5 years mapping the asteroid, trying to detect changes in its shape. All this research will show how the celestial body is likely to move so we can better design plans to protect Earth from such things. In 2025, NASA is also going to launch the mission Apophis Pathfinder, and it will be the first spaceship to ever touch this asteroid. It will land approximately a year after its launch. Also, NASA has proposed sending a swarm of tiny craft into space to help humanity develop effective protective tactics against asteroid strikes. We know that Apophis originated in the primary asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. In the past million years, this celestial body has changed its path because of the considerable influence of Jupiter's gravitation. Now it seems like it favors the Sun more, meaning this asteroid will come very close to Earth. That's why it's classified as a near-Earth celestial body. A lot of tests and research have been done to find a way to deal with asteroids. Some solutions include drilling and detonating the space body from inside, or testing new technologies, like attaching rockets to it and trying to steer it away from Earth. We can also hit it with something moving at high speeds to make it change its course. Apophis is an S-type asteroid made of rocks and minerals like iron and nickel, and is shaped like a peanut. It can tell us a lot about the past and possibly the future. Sampling this space object could reveal how life on Earth began and how plants appeared. There are many theories that suggest that water arrived on our planet on an asteroid or a comet. Asteroids are like priceless time capsules. Unlike rocks on Earth, which have undergone thousands of changes, like erosion, most celestial bodies are still intact and much easier to study. When meteors fall on Earth, they get covered in debris that's impossible to clean. That's why studying Apophis while it's still in space is so important. Also, some asteroids are made of precious metals like platinum. Right now, we have a high demand for metals that we use in production, and mining metals on Earth is quite tricky. Just one large meteor might have iron, nickel, gold, and platinum that could last us millions of years. If Apophis has this amount of metals, well, we'd want to break it down and bring it back to Earth. One space rock could be worth quadrillions of dollars, making space mining highly profitable. And still, it would cost us more to get it back to Earth than to dig up these materials here. As technology progresses and new kinds of rockets are developed, this might become possible at some point. So, even though we're safe for the next 100 years from Apophis, you probably still want to see what would happen if something like it did impact. Come on, sure you do. Well, first let me tell you, you'll hear the sound of the collision and know what's happened even if you're miles away. You should leave your house or apartment immediately. Shortly after the impact, massive earthquakes will strike, and many tall buildings will fall. So, staying away from cities might be your best option if you have a choice. But don't escape by car. There will be massive traffic jams, and everyone will panic. Going on foot or by bike is your best option in this scenario. A prime way of transportation will be traveling by plane, so if you've always wanted to get that pilot license, now you've got a good excuse. If you have time, take along extra snacks and water, and an extra pair of socks. It's nice to live by the ocean or the sea, but in this scenario, it's the worst place to be, because giant tsunami waves will hit coastlines after the impact. If you live far away from the impact area, the tsunami might take 30 hours to arrive. You'll have a bit of time to prepare.
Mars is the Earth's space cousin. It's the fourth planet in our solar system, about half the size of the Earth. It also has two small moon buddies, Phobos and Deimos. These moons are shaped like potatoes. Phobos is the drama king, moving closer to Mars and planning a crash landing in about 50 million years. Deimos is much calmer though, hanging out farther away from Mars. Mars got a cool nickname, the Red Planet, thanks to its rusty red surface. This color was so bright that it was spotted by astronomers many years ago. Even you can sometimes see it in the sky with the naked eye, a small scarlet dot. And maybe it has hot vibes, but in reality, Mars is a very cold desert. The temperatures there can drop as low as minus 240 degrees Fahrenheit. But was Mars always nothing more than a rusty-looking desert? Actually, no. Scientists believe that perhaps many years ago, this planet was similar to ours. Meet Curiosity, the detective rover made by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Scientists want to know all about the Martian weather, landscape, and other stuff like that. Curiosity is a pretty heavy car-sized robot. It weighs about 1,985 pounds. It embarked on its journey on November 26, 2011. The rover pulled off a landing on Mars on August 6, 2012. Originally, Curiosity's mission was supposed to last for 2 years, but it's still going strong. Curiosity is basically a space lab on wheels. It's packed with cameras, spectrometers, radiation detectors, and sensors to sniff out the Martian environment. As Curiosity roams around, it rewinds Mars history. And during its mission, the rover discovered something incredible: signs of lakes and rivers from long ago. You see, Curiosity's favorite spot to play around is Gale Crater. It's a prehistoric Martian oasis where water might have hung out. There's this huge mountain in the middle called Mount Sharp. This place is taller than 10 Eiffel Towers stacked on top of each other. And it's got layers of rocks that hold Mars's ancient secrets. Recently, scientists spotted something great when studying Curiosity's data: mud tracks. What's so surprising about that? Well, these aren't just any old tracks. They're like messages from the past. They mean that the Martian ground used to get wet and then dry out again. The mud on the ground would shrink and crack during the drying phases, making these T-shaped junctions. Moreover, it seems like the ground on Mars went through several wet-dry cycles. It happened maybe up to 10 times. This made the junctions turn into Y-shaped cracks. When a bunch of Y-shaped cracks got together, they made a super cool pattern, something like a patchwork of hexagons. It looks just like honeycombs, or even a dragon's skin. Each of these hexagons are the size of candy. Similar cycles have happened on Earth, and they're linked to the birth of life. When water dries up, it leaves behind concentrated stuff that's great for chemical reactions, and these reactions might be the same ones that kickstart life. These hexagons have been hanging around for a really, really long time, billions of years. That means that Mars once had a climate kind of like Earth's, and maybe even life. In fact, the Red Planet even has some signs of water right now, in the form of hidden ice at the poles. Mars has the North and South poles, and just like with the Earth, they're Red Planet's ice caps. Picture the North Cap as a big, icy pancake about 620 miles wide. The South Cap is a bit smaller, about 220 miles wide, but it's got a thicker ice layer, almost like a snowball with a strong shell. When it's winter at the poles, it's an incredibly long nighttime. No sunlight, just chilly darkness. During that time, around 30% of the air turns into frozen CO2. It's dry ice. the same stuff that's often used in horror movies. But when the poles wake up to sunlight, the dry ice turns back into gas. All this freezing and thawing makes clouds and frost, just like on Earth. One time, a rover named Opportunity even caught some clouds made of water ice. But it doesn't necessarily mean Mars was once thriving just like the Earth. Life needs more than just wet, dry cycles to pop up. It needs the right atmosphere and other special ingredients. We're not sure if Mars had all of those, and even if it did, there's no guarantee that life actually happened. But this raises another very important question. Has Mars ever hosted tiny living creatures? Curiosity isn't the only robot that tries to find the answer to that. There's also a rover called Perseverance. It's trying to find clues about Martian life. It's digging into an old Martian crater once filled with water. And like a space archaeologist, Perseverance is searching for fossilized signs of ancient critters. And here's the funny thing. Some scientists think that we've stumbled upon it almost half a century ago. The only problem is, we might have accidentally destroyed it. It happened even before Curiosity started rolling around Mars. Back in the 1980s, two cool NASA's landers, Viking 1 and Viking 2, made a pit stop on the Red Planet. These landers took a selfie, and then they also did some funky experiments on the Martian soil, all in the name of finding signs of life. What they found is some weird organic stuff called perchlorate. It's a compound that we use in fireworks or rocket fuel. But most results didn't seem that promising. They even mixed up some soil with water and nutrients, hoping that if there were Martian microbes, they'd snack on the goodies and return radioactive gas as a result. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. Now, here's the problem. Some scientists think that maybe the water they added back then actually destroyed those tiny Martian critters. Poor microbes were just hanging out and suddenly got soaked by a bunch of weird liquid. Something like this wouldn't be very pleasant for the Earth microbes. They live inside rocks and they're sucking water from the air. Pouring water on them would result in a total disaster. So, of course, giving them nutrients after that wouldn't do anything. If you've just barely survived a water bath, you're probably not in the mood for a feast. Perhaps these Martian buddies might have something called hydrogen peroxide in their cells. It helps them live in an extreme environment. If that's true, it could explain all the results from the experiments. You see, the instruments heated up the samples, so if there was hydrogen peroxide, it would have gone boom, wiping off the little guys and turning their cozy homes instantly. Imagine how ridiculous it would be if it turns out that we accidentally destroyed the only signs of life on Mars. Ideally, we need a new mission to Mars to test this theory. Let's hope it's not true. In any case, the journey isn't over. There are more missions planned for Mars, and humans might even visit this planet someday. The next mission is the Mars Sample Return. It's a super cool teamwork project between NASA and ESA. They're teaming up to bring back souvenirs from Mars, collected by NASA's trusty Mars Perseverance rover. There's going to be a whole bunch of spaceships. They'll work together to bring these precious Mars samples back. The samples are planned to arrive on Earth in the early to mid-2030s. And the fun doesn't stop at Mars. Our Mars missions are a warm-up for an even bigger adventure, exploring icy moons around Saturn and Jupiter. These moons have hidden oceans beneath their icy surfaces, and who knows what kinds of space secrets they're hiding. But whether it's Mars, icy moons, or beyond, our quest to find extraterrestrial life continues. In addition, we are slowly starting to find more and more organic materials on Mars, and maybe one day we'll finally find some microbes in our solar system. Let's hope for it, and stay tuned. There are tons of weird things on Mars. Spoons, noodles, doors, even faces. Are they all really just rocks? Besides, it's not the only planet in our solar system full of mysterious things. Let's check them out. Recently, we found a strange thing on Mars that looks like a smooth, spoon-like object. It grabbed everyone's attention after NASA's Curiosity rover spotted it. The rock, with a handle and rounded tip, looks like it's floating in the rover's photo. People on the internet are puzzled about what it might be. Some are joking that it's a Martian's bowling pin, or even a shoehorn left by extraterrestrial creatures. But Andrew Good from NASA says it's not that exciting. Turns out it's just a rock shaped by the wind over a long time. These kinds of rocks with odd shapes are common on Mars. They're called ventifacts. Ventifact is a rock that can get scratched, dented, or smoothed out by tiny particles carried by the wind. You'll usually find these kinds of rocks in dry places where there's not much grass or trees to block the wind, and where there's a lot of sand blowing around. Sometimes, the wind can carve ventifacts into really cool shapes, like the mushroom rocks you can see in the White Desert National Park in Egypt. These rocks look like giant mushrooms because the wind wears away the bottom part faster than the top, making them stand tall and slim. Ventifacts aren't the only cool Martian rocks. Check out this series of surreal spikes protruding from the red surface. NASA's Curiosity rover stumbled upon them while exploring the Gale crater on Mars. They quickly caught everyone's attention. Twisting structures resembling spikes looked like some extraterrestrial doors. Even the SETI Institute, an organization focused on searching for extraterrestrial life, tweeted about the image, referring to it as a cool rock. But in reality, these are just hoodoos. These tall and thin spires occur when hard rock sits atop softer rock layers. Martian spikes are likely cemented fillings of ancient fractures in sedimentary rock, with softer material eroded away over time. Again, there are many hoodoos on Earth too. They're also called fairy chimneys or tent rocks. You can find them in places like Utah's Bryce Canyon and the Colorado Plateau. NASA is excited about these weird structures because they can help us learn more about the history of the Gale crater. There was also a rock that looked like a jelly donut. We called this rock Pinnacle Island. It was spotted by NASA's cameras. However, just 4 days earlier, it was nowhere to be seen. So how did it magically disappear? In a very anticlimactic way, it was kicked up by one of Opportunity's wheels as it traversed the Martian terrain. But there's still some mystery surrounding that jelly donut. Analysis revealed that Pinnacle Island contains unusually high levels of sulfur and manganese. Both of these things are water-soluble. In other words, there might have been some water action that created these elements in the rock. So this tiny thing suddenly caused a lot of drama, and an entire lawsuit against NASA. It claimed that the agency failed to investigate a possible fungus growing on Mars. Jelly donut fungus. But not all our findings are natural. Another puzzling discovery was this thing the Perseverance rover spotted. It's something that looks like tangled spaghetti or string. Just like the donut, this mysterious object showed up in a rover camera image and then vanished from the sandy ground in several days. It turns out that it could be debris from the rover's landing system. Perseverance landed in the Jezero crater in February 2021. It had a rough landing and accidentally scattered debris around. Some of these debris pieces have been showing up in the rover's images for a while now. The string-like object is likely a piece of shredded Dacron netting, which is a type of fiber used in thermal blankets. These blankets help regulate equipment temperatures during the super hot process of landing on Mars. It probably underwent significant unraveling and shredding due to strong forces during the landing. Thermal blankets lost a bunch of stuff back then. For example, this shiny foil piece spotted in June. The rover found it on a rock. What's remarkable is how far some of the debris has traveled. The rover landed about 1.2 miles away from where it's currently exploring. It's probably because the crash threw the debris into the air, and the Martian winds carried it over such a distance. Mars is known for its strong winds, which can move lightweight objects. However, while it's fun to stumble upon them on images, there are concerns about the debris and trash on Mars. We haven't even fixed this problem on Earth, and we're already creating it on Mars. The debris we left on the red planet is already accumulating in an area called Hog Wallow Flats. Plus, the debris can accidentally contaminate the sample tubes used for collecting Martian rocks. So far, NASA isn't overly worried about this, but they're keeping a close eye on it to prevent any issues with the rovers. Now, how about not things, but animals? Curiosity caused quite a stir when it captured something that looked like a rat on Mars. Some started speculating that it could be evidence of indigenous Martian life, or even that this rodent was brought along by Curiosity. But the Mars rat, once again, turned out to be just a weird rock. It looked interesting because of the natural processes like wind erosion and mechanical abrasion. We also found some worm-looking things. Curiosity snapped a picture of a formation that looks like worms wriggling across the Martian landscape. Despite its tiny size, this formation stands out with its unique shape and rough texture. It's probably made of durable material resistant to Mars's harsh erosion. And finally, our top mysterious finding is the face on Mars. Cydonia is a region on Mars that has captured both scientific and popular interest. It's located in Mars's northern hemisphere. It lies between heavily cratered regions to the south and relatively smooth plains to the north. There's a theory that the northern plains may have once been ocean beds. Maybe Cydonia was once a coastal zone. This place is full of interesting and beautiful features that tell us a lot about the history of the Red Planet. But its most interesting feature was the Martian face. This thing gained widespread attention when it was snapped by the Viking 1 orbiter in 1976. Some believed that it was evidence of a long-lost Martian civilization. At first, NASA dismissed it as a trick of light and shadow. But after some analysis, it turned out to be, yep, another rock. We also saw a face of a bear. It was captured by the high-resolution imaging experiment camera. In an image, we can see a circular fracture pattern that looks like a bear's head, with two craters forming the eyes and a V-shaped collapse structure like the nose. The head likely formed because something heavy settled on top of an old hole in the ground. This hole was filled with either lava or mud. The nose-like feature is speculated to be a volcanic or mud vent. But why do we keep seeing these strange things on Mars? Sometimes our brains can trick us into seeing things like faces or objects in rocks and other things. But these are just illusions called pareidolia. Pareidolia is a psychological phenomenon that makes us see familiar patterns or shapes, especially faces, where none actually exist. It's because the brain encounters something it doesn't recognize or understand right away. It tries to find things that look the most like this one. So it sees random patterns, textures, or sounds as something meaningful and recognizable. That's why a chair and clothes on it seems like a super creepy human-like figure at night. It also causes you to see faces or shapes in clouds, or hear recognizable sounds and even words in random noise. It's a fascinating proof of the power of our perception, but we also should be careful with it and not let our imagination run wild.
And we have liftoff of Mars Global Surveyor as America begins its journey back to the Red Planet.
There's a weird structure on Mars, a square, a near-perfect square standing alone in the endless red desert. And it looks too perfect, too precise to be anything but artificial. Nature's chaotic, and it rarely makes things look so deliberate. So the internet took one look at it and lost its mind, as the internet tends to do. The image spread like a virus on social media, igniting every conspiracy theory you can think of. Some were convinced it was proof that intelligent life had once tread upon the Martian sands. Well, let's dive in and sort it out. The image is real, and it's really old. The thing, not the picture. NASA's Mars Orbiter camera snapped it in 2001, capturing a tiny slice of Martian terrain, and there sat the square. Now, is that evidence for intelligent life? Well, Mars is an empty world now, a rust-colored desert. But once, long ago, it may have been something else entirely. A planet filled with roaring rivers, vast oceans, and thick clouds rolling across the sky. Now, in a world like that, life, if it ever had a chance, could have taken root. And there's a possibility it did. Scientists think that life could have existed on Mars in a short period from around 4.1 to 3 billion years ago. It could have started during the early era of Martian history, called the Noachian period, and lasted all the way to the late Hesperian period. Meanwhile, here on Earth, the first oceans were just forming. Life on our planet was just beginning, in the form of tiny bacteria in deep-sea hydrothermal vents. While Mars was already fully wet, on Earth, there were no plants or animals, just microscopic life trying to survive. So, Mars took the lead in the life game. It had a much thicker atmosphere, which could have trapped enough heat to keep water liquid. Valley networks, huge traces across the red landscape, show us the incredible story of rainfall, rivers, and lakes. Huge asteroids were still hitting Mars at the time, and they could have brought organic molecules with them. But if that's true, what happened and where did life go? A recent NASA study suggests that the answer is more complicated than we thought. Astronomers believe that something drastic happened to Mars, like boom, and its cozy climate was gone, its atmosphere thinned. Without a strong magnetic field like Earth's to protect it, solar radiation stripped away the air, leaving Mars cold and dry. The ocean simply evaporated. Some of the water escaped into space while the rest froze underground or became locked in polar ice caps. Today, all that remains is a ghostly memory, dry channels and salty mineral deposits. But it looks like the transition wasn't sudden at all. It was slow and gradual. The planet was changing from wet and warm to cold and dry over millions of years. In fact, Mars kept its ocean even after the temperatures dropped to freezing. Some parts of Mars, especially the northern lowlands, might have remained wet for many, many centuries. Shouldn't the water freeze when it gets below 32 degrees Fahrenheit? Well, yeah. But there are many reasons why this miracle happened, like Mars's thick atmosphere and warm water traveling through currents. And during that time we mentioned before, from Noachian to the late Hesperian, life could have found a way. Microbes on Earth thrive in some of the harshest places, beneath Antarctic ice, in deep sea vents, in toxic volcanic lakes. Hey, life doesn't care. So these times in Martian history would be amazing for it. But don't be mistaken, Mars was never a paradise. Even during its cozy times, it wasn't as lush and green as we might imagine. In its early days, Mars was something more extreme, something closer to the young Earth. During the Noachian period, it was warm yet wet. Then, the climate shifted into the Hesperian period. Oceans were stretching across the northern lowlands. Temperatures dropped, and snow piled high, forming massive glaciers in the south, transforming the planet into an icy world. Finding microscopic life at that time is possible, but an intelligent civilization? That's less likely. The square that went viral isn't evidence for intelligent life yet, and here's why. First things first, people freak out because nature doesn't make straight lines. But that's not really true. Actually, nature does it all the time. For example, here on Earth, we have the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland, a beautiful field of hexagonal basalt columns. These are completely natural. They're formed by volcanic activity. There's also the Devil's Tower in Wyoming. Hey, remember it from the Close Encounters movie in the 80s? That's a symmetrical rock formation, and it was created by erosion. However, if we looked at these things from space, they'd look artificial. So, what is the square? How about a fracture pattern in the rock or some terrain that's broken apart along straight lines due to stress? This happens on Earth all the time when rock expands and contracts over time. And on Mars, the surface is just constantly battered by meteors, winds, and extreme temperature shifts. No wonder rock would get stressed. What happens here is another case of pareidolia. It's our brain's favorite thing, to spot patterns in something random. Hey, we evolved like this. So sometimes we might look at natural objects and see insane stuff. Faces on trees, animals and clouds, shapes, and so on. Besides, NASA has been photographing Mars for decades. We have high-resolution images of craters, mountains, valleys, riverbeds, hey, everything. Wouldn't an ancient civilization leave us, well, something better than some square-like rock? Even though things erode over time, we'd find more signs, roads, foundations, artifacts, ruins, or at least something. Though, to be fair, we do see something. The square wouldn't be the first time Mars has played tricks on us. Over the years, we've spotted everything, from tunnels to carved faces, even Bigfoot. Or this doorway, for example, a perfectly cut rectangular opening. That's what people saw when NASA's Curiosity rover sent back an image of the East Cliffs on Mount Sharp. It's almost like an ancient passage leading deep into the surface. You just need to go in and find some fantastic underground base. Well, NASA decided to take a closer look at it. It turns out it's just 12 inches tall and 16 inches wide, the size of a dog door. That's because what we're looking at isn't a doorway, but an open fracture, a break in the rock that happens naturally over time. These kinds of cracks are extremely common, both on Earth and on Mars. They form when bedrock is stressed, expands, contracts, or gets eroded by wind and time. If you walk through a desert here on Earth, you'd see plenty of similar shapes. Canyons, cliffs, and even boulders have fractures that, from the right angle, might look like doorways. They're just not getting photographed by NASA. Also, the straightness of lines turns out to be just a trick of perspective. If you zoom out, you'll see that it's just one small break in a much bigger rock formation. Or the infamous Cydonia face. The photo was taken back in 1976 by NASA's Viking 1 orbiter when it was scanning Mars. In the region known as Cydonia, it captured what looked like a massive humanoid face, a rocky formation about 1.2 miles long. And this one face inspired books, documentaries, movies, and podcasts. But when NASA's Viking orbiters first took pictures of Cydonia, the cameras weren't super advanced. The image of the face had a low resolution and made the details fuzzy. NASA's later missions had far better cameras, and when Mars Global Surveyor revisited Cydonia in 2001, the truth was undeniable. The face was just a hill, a lumpy rock formation with ridges and depressions carved by wind and erosion. And in 2006, during another mission, a colored image with insanely high detail was made. No traces of face left there whatsoever. That's another pareidolia trick for you. Now, Mars has plenty of secrets left to uncover, but they will be related to its fascinating history, not some secret ancient civilization. The conclusion is, don't trust everything you see online. Sometimes a mysterious rock is just a rock.